Hello, Twitch chat. How's everybody doing? Thank you for waiting. I always like to wait like 5 minutes to start because I know as the notification rolls out, not a lot of people see it right away. So I'm always afraid of diving in as soon as I go live and a whole bunch of people missing the intro, especially today because I'm doing a little bit of a different stream today. We're not going to work on the study guide app that I've been working on. Instead, we're going to try to live stream one of the Android dev challenges, and hopefully, if this goes well, I'm going to be posting this video over on YouTube when we're done. So, Twitch chat, say hi to YouTube. Also, thank you, Dominus Belly, for the subscribe. Great way to start the day. I appreciate it. Um, so let me start this stream off by you are a boomer, TJ. I'm sorry, that's just where we're at now. Uh, so let me start the stream off by giving a little bit of background on what we're doing. In case some of you had missed it, when Android released the Jetpack Compose beta release, I think earlier in March, they announced the Android Dev Challenge, which was going to be 4 weeks of challenges to build an app using Jetpack Compose. And week 3 of that was like a speed round where they released some mock-ups for an application, and you had to build it as fast as you can and send in your oh my god, submission. That's the word. Send in your submission for a chance to win a prize. Now I didn't feel like diving in and building it as fast as possible, but they did leave all of the apps up for people to check out on their own time for their own learning exercise to try and build. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to build one of those, specifically one called Bloom. If you're interested in finding where the dev challenges are at, I will post a link to this in chat right now. But you can see there were 3 of them. They basically did them on different time zones around the world to make it easier on people in certain locations. Let me go ahead and drop that in there. I forgot which one. Yeah, so the Bloom one, actually it doesn't say, but I think this was like Asia Pacific was the time zone that this one was catered towards. But inside each of these zip files, you're basically given a bunch of assets that you need for the application, as well as a PDF that provides all of the spec that you need. So let me show you what that looks like. So with each one, you are first given like a style guide. So let me zoom in on some of this for you. You're given a light theme color palette, a dark theme color palette, some information on the typography, shapes, elevation, icons that are used, and then a bunch of image assets that are used. We'll show you these on a future slide. It gives you the flow. So for the Bloom app that we're building today, there's really just 3 screens that we have to worry about. We have this welcome screen, we have a login screen, and then this home screen that shows a bunch of information. Now, for the purposes of this little code along, I'm not going to make these screens like interactive. I'm not going to like actually implement logging in. I think as a learning exercise, it would be good for like email and password to learn about how to handle text input. Maybe we can even show like how to take the password input and show like the little dots instead of actually showing the text. That we can do. But I think what I'll do for like the learning exercise is just whatever is inside these inputs or nothing at all. Clicking login will take us to the home screen. I just want to build out these screens, learn about Compose. We're not really going to focus on like the back end side of things here. Like even on the home screen, you know, I'm not going to have like clicking happen. Maybe we could do that with like these little checkboxes here, you know, but like these 3 bottom tabs that are unselected, we're not going to build out those screens. And we'll come back to this documentation later, but just to show you what it looks like as we go through this project, is for each screen, they give us what the light color palette looks like and the dark color palette looks like, and then one that gives us some detailed specs. So like on the left here, we have like all of these spacing and dimensions that we're going to need. And that even tells us like which typography is associated with each label. It's like this is subtitle 1, and this is a button. And it gives you the, again, light and dark versions. And if we scroll through this PDF, it's the same thing for each screen. There's the specs for login, also for home. The other nice thing about home is that because these both horizontal and vertical lists scroll, they give us like the full list of items. So I hope this PDF makes sense. We will walk through it as we go and look at individual pieces. The next thing I need to do before we get started is to walk you through a little bit about what I did before the stream. Because I didn't do a lot, I had this debate like, how much setup should I do before we get started? Because I don't want to spend too much time on fluff in the video, but I want to do a little bit beforehand so we didn't get too caught up. So here is the GitHub project now, by the way, if you want to see where we're at now, follow along, star the repo. But let me tell you a little bit about what I did before I started. So in the Bloom assets that I downloaded from GitHub, there were a few images that we need in the application, like the background for the welcome screen and like the little leaf that shows up on the welcome screen. I took those assets and I already downloaded them, converted them to vector assets, and I put those inside the drawable folder for this project already. Also on the PDF, on the style page, there was a whole bunch of links off to the right, which were the image assets used in the sample app. You have things like this. I also downloaded all of those and put them into the project. This was just kind of boilerplate work. I didn't want to hold up the live stream, downloading videos, putting them in the drawable folder. You get the gist. That was another thing I did ahead of time. And the only other thing I changed, just pointing it out if someone is curious, the only other thing I changed from the default Android Studio template was inside the theme, I made it so the status bar was translucent so that we could draw behind it, because I noticed in the specs for the app that it looked like it was kind of a full screen UI, and I wanted to make sure we got that as well. So, and if we run this app as it is just from the template, we basically just have this. It's actually hard to see, but there is like a little Hello Android up at the top, and because we made the status bar translucent, it drew behind the status bar. So I don't know if you can see the text, but that's it. Basically took the Android Studio template, I downloaded all the image assets. The rest of this we have to do ourselves. So let me know in chat if you have any questions before we get started. But otherwise, I'm going to dive into the first step in this process, which is going to this page right here, and I want to build the design system for Bloom. So one of the great things about Compose, and really this is a material design concept, is material design gives us certain guidelines and specifications that we should try to follow that allow us to have like a consistent feel throughout our application while still being able to provide our own specific branding to it. And we'll see as we go along and start writing some Compose how easy it is to use the design system we create throughout the app. Now, one thing I might have to do for your sake to avoid the dizziness of switching back and forth is I actually have a copy of this PDF open on my second screen that you can't see, and I'm going to take the information from this sheet and move it into our Jetpack Compose code. I will walk through that. If at any point you're in chat and you're confused about like where some values I'm writing are coming from, let me know. I can go back to this and show you. But I can also switch between the code editor and this doc with each step. So like the first step I'm going to do is one of the things I debated doing beforehand. This will be a little boilerplate, but I'm going to take all of these colors and I'm going to put them inside of our application and then set up our light and dark color palettes. So knowing that I'm going to go do that, I'm going to switch over to the IDE And I'm going to pull up the documentation on my other screen so that I can see it, and I will just talk through this. And I can't see chat right now, but I'll write some colors and then I'll come back and show it to y'all. So in the Android Studio template for Compose, when we build a new Compose app, it creates this color.kt file for us that has a handful of colors inside of it already. So you can see they kind of follow the standard of like color name and then a number value. Whoops. And I forgot what this means, but it's kind of like a shade, right? Like we have different shades of purple, and usually the higher the number, the darker the shade. So what we're going to replace this file with is basically these lines right here. You know, we'll add white, we'll add pink 100, pink 900, etc. So let's run through and do that real quick. So before I delete the other ones, let's start off with white. And I'll show you an interesting reason for doing that. So when we want to create a color in Jetpack Compose, typically we're used to 6-digit hex codes, but I think when you define it in Compose this way, you need 8, where the first 2 are like your alpha values. And here I want this to have like 100% alpha. I want it to be completely opaque in a color, no like dimming it or anything like that. So all of these are going to have FF at the front, and then we'll put the actual 6 digits that are relevant. So for white, that's all Fs. And then we've got another one in here, which is pink 100. And that is, it looks like that is FF, F1, F1. Oops. And we've got pink 900. So I apologize, this is a little tedious, but I decided to do this on the stream because I thought it would be good to just see this process, see how easy it is to take the colors and add it into your Compose application. And we can also talk about an interesting thing that we can do with colors in Compose, which is this first color that I come to that I don't know how to handle, which is the white 850, which is all white, but it has 85% alpha. So there's just like a little off-white, a little bit of transparency here. Now one way we could do that is to modify these first 2 bits that we talked about. But I don't know what 85% is in hex. So let me show you a little trick of this, which is we can define white 850. Whoops. And we can say that's white.copy, and then we can change the alpha from that other color using the Kotlin copy method. And that's it. So we don't need to do any fancy math. We have this color. We want to get it at 85% alpha. This is what we do. Alpha is on a sliding scale from 0.0 to 1.0. So 85% would be 0.85. What else do we have in this color palette? We also have gray, which is, it looks like that is 232323. All right, so that is actually everything we need for the light palette. So let's build the dark palette next. We have green 300. I'll put them in order here. B8, C9, B8. Okay. We also have green 900, which is 2D, 3B, 2D. I think the rest of these are actually the same. We do also have a white 150 that is used in the dark color palette, and we'll use the same trick. We'll just do white.copy, and we'll set the alpha to 0.15F. Okay, so what we did there was take all of these colors, you know, some are repeated, gray is used more than once, and we just defined all of those in our project. Let me slide over to Twitch chat to see if anyone had any questions while I did that. If I click on the color square in the gutter, does it give me options to change something? I guess it does. Interesting. I did not know that was a thing. So let's try playing with this just for curiosity. So if we wanted this to be 85, there we go, it would change it. I don't know if you can see this. It changed the first 2 characters to D9 instead of FF. Oh, you can see it in the IDE, hopefully. Um, Thank you for sharing that, Hamburger. I had no idea that you could do that. Good to know. So we could change, this, but as a personal preference, having thought about this, I kind of like this approach. It's a little more explicit, saying I'm taking this color we already have and I'm applying this alpha to it. Versus if I define the hex code directly, I wouldn't get that benefit. I'd have to recognize that like it's the same as another color, but I guess it's just personal preference. So the next thing we need to do, now that we've defined all of these, is to actually define the color palette itself. So if you notice on this style sheet, each color, let me zoom in a little further even, each color has a name above it. We have our primary color, secondary, background, surface, on primary, on secondary. And under the hood, all of the Jetpack Compose functions will use these colors from our color palette. So I think like by default, a button is going to use your primary color. If you create like a card view, by default it's going to use whatever your surface color is. And I don't have a cheat sheet for what's used everywhere, but that's one way to think about it. This color palette's going to be used by default by certain components, and we can override that as necessary, and I'm almost certain we'll have to do that at some point in our application. But given that, we need to take this information and go throw that into our theme file. So let me show you where we find that. Another auto-generated class from the template is this theme.kt. And we can see here it defines a dark color palette, a light color palette, and then inside our Bloom theme composable, we accept this parameter for whether or not we're in the dark theme, and then based on that, we determine which color palette we should use. So if dark theme, use dark color palette, else light color palette. And then we return this material theme that has our colors, it has some typography, which we'll look at next, it has some shapes, which we'll also look at, and then there's the actual content, which is like the composable that you'll write inside of it. That's this function here. So let's update our color palette real quick. I'm just going to delete this. What I'm going to do is look at, on my other screen, the color palette that we just made and fill in all those values. So for this one, primary is going to be green 900. Secondary, is going to be green 300. Background is gray. Surface is white 150. On primary is white. On secondary is gray. On background is white. And on surface is white 850. Cool. So this is just copying what was in the PDF onto here. There's nothing too crazy going on there. Let's see the same thing for the light color palette. Primary is going to be pink 100, secondary is pink 900, background is white, surface is white 850, on primary is gray, on secondary is white, on background is gray, and on surface is also gray. Cool. So that is our color palette. Let me know if you have any questions. Good little breakpoint before we talk about typography. But really cool to see the colors in there. I'm actually curious, I don't know how much has changed, but I'm going to run this sample app and see if that actually changes anything inside our UI so far. I'm not sure if we would get anything different. Looks like that's going to take a minute to build. I didn't change a whole lot, so I didn't think it would. There we go. I think that colors are still the same. Whoops, we do not need to update Java right now. I guess nothing noticeably changed. Maybe the colors are gray instead of black. But as we build our own things, we'll be able to see what actually changed there. So now we need to set our typography. And actually, I'm just now catching something that I think I forgot to do before the stream, which is I don't have these fonts installed. So I might need to go do that. Let's talk about this typography real quick. So we have certain, text styles that appear around the application, right? We have heading 1, heading 2, subtitle 1, body 1. That's what these first part is. And they're used, I think you have to set when these are used, really, with the exception of some things, like the button text style is used on a button automatically. But if I create like a text composable, I think by default it uses body 1, unless I specify my own style to it. And with each one it tells me what font I need, and then it also gives me the font size and any letter spacing. So I didn't get a chance to do this before the stream because I forgot that this was one thing I would have to do. So we're actually going to have to go over to fonts.google and download these fonts real quick. So please join me on this little adventure. Oops, I don't want to get rid of the PDF. So let me do open a new tab. And let me go over to this screen where I can reference what I need. So I did use this tool once, and one cool thing about it is I can find the style I want. Oh, this is actually really good. So this Nunito Sans is the only font style we use. We use a couple different ones. We use bold, light, semi-bold, I guess just those three. So one thing we can do is just click download family, and that will download a whole zip file for us. Oops, and that opened on my other screen. How do I do this? I actually don't want to I can't open it on my other screen. Please hold. I did not want to show chat my entire downloads folder. That's what I was trying to avoid happening there. But it gives you this folder with all of the .ttf files you need. So let's double check which ones we needed. We needed bold, we needed semi-bold, and we needed light. So we're going to right click and copy those items. And what we can do is go into our res folder. We can make a new directory called font, and we can paste these in there. Now, one thing I think we will need to do is we'll need to rename these. You can already see they're underlined because they don't meet Android's standard for what is it? Resources. So we can just underline and snake case these. We can make it Nunito Sans bold. I'm doing shift function F6 is the keyboard shortcut to refactor. Cool. So now that we have those, let's talk about where we use them. So we have another file in here called, this type.kt. And this is where all of our typography styles exist. So right now it just shows one example of overriding body 1. You set a font family, you set a font weight, font size, and it shows like you can do this for button or caption. We are going to do this for all of the examples right here. And I'm going to again pull that up on my other screen and type it in. Now, one thing I need to look up real quick, because I don't actually know what I'm doing, is how do I reference the font resource that I just created? And I know that I did this in another file, so let me just pull that up for reference sake. Oh man, so many files. Nope, that's not what I want. Got it. So what I wanted to look up was we need a way to reference that font resource we just created, right? So one way we could do that is, we can create a font family, and then we can call font and then give it the resource ID. There we go, just like that. And we'll do the same thing for the other ones. There we go. So we've created our font family using the custom font that we got from Google Fonts. Now what I need to do is pull up this file. I'm going to do it on my other screen, and I'm basically going to take all of this and translate it into Kotlin code real quick. So let's do that. Where did I put that file? Over here. Let's delete all of this and set them one at a time. So we'll start by setting H1. And for each one of these, we're going to do text style, and we want to give it the font family. Okay, here it's going to be bold. We want to give it a font size. Here we'll do 18.sp, and what did I say? Letter spacing. So, and actually most of these, it's 0 letter spacing, so I can omit this unless necessary. So I'll only add it on the ones that actually need it. H2, for example, that's going to be text style. That is also going to be bold. The size here is 14, and then this one does have a letter spacing. And I think these are also in SPs. I hope that's right. We've got subtitle 1. This is going to be light, and that is 16. We've got body 1, which is also light, and that size is 14. We've got body 2. Sorry, I know this is tedious, but I was pretty interested in doing this live anyways, just to show y'all how quick it is to create your own design system in Compose. Even though it feels tedious watching me, like we're already almost done. And the benefit we get out of this is huge. Whoops, whoa. So for the button, it's semi-bold. The font size is 14. And this one also has letter spacing of 1. And caption. Semi-bold. And the size is 12 sp. And that's it. That's our typography. So, and then one thing to note at the top is this is a typography instance, and this is what was used inside the theme.k2 file down here when we passed in the typography. So now anywhere in our Jetpack Compose app where we need to reference any text styles, it will be there for us automatically. Let's go back to the doc and see if there's anything else we need to know. There is some stuff down here. So we set shapes. Shapes are where you define like the corners of certain shapes. Like we have small and medium. We can see here the small is used on snack bars, images, text fields, cards. We'll see later like when that's used. Certain shapes are used automatically. Like I think a card component, I actually think by default it uses the medium shape, but you can override it as necessary, and maybe that will make more sense when we actually implement a card later. But what you need to know for right now is this: the small size is a 4 dp rounded corner, and medium is 24. So I say that's important because we also have our own shapes that are defined. And by the template, small is a rounded corner shape, and the radius is 4 dp. And the medium, it's also 4, but we want to make it 24. I think that was, yes, what our spec called for. And for all intents and purposes, that is everything we need to create our own design system in Jetpack Compose. So let me know if you have any questions about the theming aspect of this. I'm going to go ahead and make a commit with this code, adding the design system. I'll go back to the theme doc. There's a couple more things on this page, but nothing we need to add right now. Specifically, I noticed that it defines this elevation to be used on certain components, and I don't think that we set that globally in the theme that we just made. I think that we could set the elevation on a component by component basis. If I'm wrong, let me know. It may be something I just don't understand yet. I should have said that in the beginning. I think I know most of what we need to do to build out Bloom, but I could be wrong. I might run into some interesting stuff, and I might have to do some Googling along the way, but I'll try my best. And also on this screen, we have icons that are used in the app. I'm using the, I'll use the material design icons. They should have all of these already. If we find any that are missing, we can go ahead and add these into our project. But we shouldn't have to do anything special for these right now. I hope that was interesting. Looks like chat has no questions on the design part. So let's dive into our flow, and let's start by building out the welcome screen. We'll talk first about what this screen needs a little bit. So the welcome screen doesn't look too bad. We've got actually like 3 different images here. And I know this by having looked at the Bloom assets. Let me tell you why there's 3. One image asset is this sort of this white, like curved part that shows up in the background. This pink is actually like from our color palette. This little white section is an image asset that we were given. We were also given this leaf, and then we were given the Bloom app icon. This is not a text view, this is an image. And we do have a couple text. We have one text component to show, which is this little subtitle here, Beautiful Home Garden Solutions. And then we have 2 buttons. One has a background to it, and one does not. But I believe both are buttons. And I can actually, yes. So we can see here on this spec page, both of these are buttons. This text view is subtitle 1, and then the rest are images. And then we do see here all of the dimensions that we need. So let me show you a little bit about my process that I found really helpful for creating Compose screens. Would love to learn about what some of you do, but specifically I want to talk about like the tooling aspect of this. So one great thing that Jetpack Compose gives us is the ability to view previews in the right-hand pane here. So like our activity, we have this like preview function down here at the bottom that shows like a greeting for the name Android, and then we can see on the right here what this preview looks like. So I'm going to set up each screen to show like a preview. I can set a preview to show a light theme and a dark theme version, and we're going to use this preview window to iterate quickly and try out changes to our project, right? So let's start. I'm going to make this a new file, and I'm going to call it welcome screen. And what I'm going to do is create the composable function. And right now, I'm not going to put anything inside of it because I want to talk about the preview aspect. So I like to make in order to use a preview, we have to use the @preview annotation. We also needed to have the composable annotation. And then I like to make this a private function, and I like to call it like preview welcome screen. But one thing I'm going to do differently here is specifically I'm going to make one called preview dark welcome screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to do Bloom theme, and then here we could set dark theme equals true, and then inside of this we're just going to show a welcome screen. That's it. That's all there is to our preview. And I'm going to copy this code, basically do the same thing, but instead I'm going to call it light welcome screen and set dark theme to false. So if I split this now, actually I can build and refresh. You can't see the build and refresh button. I'm still working on figuring out where the best place to put my face is. I think top right helps you see most of the things, but every once in a while I'll click on a button that you won't be able to see and I'll let you know. But now we can have a preview set up for light and dark theme. We can then begin to build out our screen. So let's talk about, I just briefly want to talk about how I think we should structure this screen, and then we'll go ahead and build it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a box, which is, if you're used to the existing Android views, you know, a box is kind of like a frame layout. It's just a container for you to put stuff in. You can relate it to each other, align it certain ways. Actually, I don't know if you can relate it to each other. Cut that part. You can align it to certain sides. We're going to make a box as big as possible. We're going to set the background color. I think this is our color primary, which we want to be the background of the box. And then we're going to add the image views on it. And then I'm going to take all of these things and I'm going to group them together into a column. A column is something that lays things out, you know, what's the word, vertically, one after the other. So let's start by doing that background box thing. We're going to create a box, make it use our primary color for the background. We're going to add the two image views we need, and then we'll come back and do this column part after. So one thing I need to note is when we add this little leaf image view, looks like it needs to be 88 dp from the start and 72 from the top. And it looks like there's, maybe I should look at this a different way. So we need 48 dp between the leaf image and the text. So originally I was thinking that this would be its own column, but I'm starting to think that everything, including the leaf, should all be one column. So maybe I'll build it that way, see how it goes. Maybe we'll unwind a little bit. We'll take it a step back again and we'll just start with the background. So let's do that. Let's create a box. And we do want to put like a little modifier on this box. So that modifier is that we want this to fill max size. We want it to be as big as possible. And we want to customize the background. And we do that on the modifier. We do modifier.background. And then we can set the color. Now I mentioned we can reference our color palette directly. So I don't need to know if the primary color is, could I use surface? I think I could. And I don't know the nuance between surface and, that's a good question. I don't know the nuance between surface and box here. I wish I had an answer to that. That was a good question. I could probably use both, and there's probably a nuance difference between the two. I think box allows you to like align things, and I don't know if a surface can do that, but I don't know. I will have to follow up on that. Thank you for that question. But I mentioned we could just reference our design system directly, and we do that by calling material theme and then doing .colors.primary. And the theme itself will know, you know, like based on this parameter right here, it will know if this needs to be, let me close this, make it easier for y'all. It will know if this needs to be the light primary versus the dark primary. Yeah. So that's all we need to do on the box itself. And then inside the box, we need to show this little curved image right here. And it's worth noting that that little curved image is different on the light and dark theme. And as far as using an image goes, we can't just like, I mean, there might be a technical solution for it, but it's not as simple as just referencing our material theme. We need to decide which one to use. And so the way we do that is we can determine if we're in the light theme or dark theme by referencing the material theme. We could say is dark is equal to material theme dot colors dot, oh, we've got is light. So let me keep that same function. So we can reference our material theme colors to determine if we're light theme or not. And so then we can say background image res is, if we're the light theme, that's going to be r.drawable.IC light welcome background. That was one of the image assets from the Bloom zip folder that I downloaded before the stream. Otherwise, we want r.drawable.IC dark welcome background. And you can see in the little gutter here, which one is used based on that. So then we want to add an image, and painter resource, the ID is going to be the background image res. We also need to define a content description, which won't autocomplete till I import. Now, since this is just a background image and not like actual content, I think it's okay to ignore a content description here. We don't need a screen reader to read it. But I think also we want to set a content scale, which is, I forgot the other Android thing. Scale type is I think what it's called in the existing framework, where you can set this to be fill bounds, crop, fill height, fill width. In this case, we want it to fill the bounds. We want this image to be as big as the image composable itself. And in that case, looking at this one, we actually want to make this, I believe the image asset includes the top and bottom, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set a modifier on this image so that it will fill max size. I want this image to be as big as it can possibly be. And I hope that's right. Let's go ahead and run this as we have it. I'll build and refresh over here, and let's see how this turns out. Okay. Actually, it's looking good. I'll have to zoom out. So I know some of it's cut off by my image, but hopefully as I scroll, you can see the dark and light preview. This looks good. This looks like we're already on our way to making the welcome screen the way they wanted. So one thing I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to highlight all this code, and I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Command-Option-M, which is extract method, and I'm going to put all this code in its own private composable function, and we're going to call this welcome background. And so now this keeps our main welcome screen composable a little cleaner. We've got a box, and inside of it we have a welcome background. So now we got to build the other stuff. Good times. So I'm a little unsure going into this, admittedly, how we're going to build this leaf part, because of the fact that, or I know by looking at the image assets, that the leaf asset that we have, it's the full leaf. You can even see the stem here, right? And if you look at the specs, the screen kind of cuts it off. So I think we want to use an offset sort of thing. I might just build the column, get everything on the screen, and then figure out how to tweak the alignment on this item. So let's do that. Let's start with that. Let's dump everything on the screen and then play around with the styling. I think that's a good incremental approach. So to avoid switching back and forth, I'm just going to talk about this. We're going to make a column that lays things out vertically. We're going to add this leaf image, the app title, this text, and 2 buttons. Let's do that real quick. Let's make a column. I will set one modifier on this, just so that I know. Actually, I'll come back and do the styling. Let's just dump everything in there. So first things first, we need the image. And we actually know that the the leaf image changes based on theme. So let's get a reference to, whether we're light or dark theme again. And leaf image res will be if we are the light theme. Let me widen that up for y'all. Then we want light welcome. I don't know what that ILL, I don't know if that's supposed to be illos, like willows. I don't actually know what that's supposed to be for, but that's the image asset that we use. Similarly, we'll have to do this for the logo, so I'll just get that at the top as well. I see light logo, else dark logo. So this is everything we need to get started. So let's add the leaf image. We will do an image, painter resource, leaf image res. Can I reformat? That didn't work well. Sorry about that. That's a little formatting issue. Again, we'll make the content description null. We shouldn't always do this, but I think specifically for like some of these images that we're just showing on the background as fluff, we don't need a content description. We could put one on the title image, which is what we're going to add next. That's probably a good idea. We'll do painter resource, logo image res, and then here we can set the content description to the app name. We can call it Bloom. Also, one of the things that I'm doing in the interest of time, like I said, and not building out all the functionality, it'd be a good idea to use a string resource here, but I'll probably hard code a lot of strings in the application. So we did the image, we did the title. The next thing is like the little heading. So that's going to be a text. And the text is, let me slide over, Beautiful Home Garden Solutions. Beautiful Home Garden Solutions. Okay, and we can also define a style here. And from the spec, this was supposed to be heading 1, I think. I lied. It's supposed to be subtitle 1. I'm glad I double checked that. And we can reference that by doing a similar thing as the colors. We can do material theme dot typography dot subtitle 1. And now we need to add 2 buttons. So let's add 1 button. We won't worry about on click yet, but inside the button we'll do text. And let me slide back over to the spec, I'm sorry. We've got create account and login. Thank you for the follow, I appreciate it. I played around with, someone was concerned before that the alert noise was very loud on the stream, so I dimmed it a lot. Let me know how that was. If it's still too loud, I'll work on changing that. We've got create account button. We're just going to copy this to put another button below it called login. And to help avoid some confusion moving forward, I'm actually going to do that same extract function stuff to split this out a lot. I think that will help with some readability moving forward. So I'm going to extract this into a login button function. And we'll make this one a create account function, or create account button. Sorry. We've got the app subtitle, that's what we'll call that one. We've got our logo image. I highly recommend this as a practice as you get into Compose, to break out your functions into smaller bits to help with readability a lot. And this one will be the leaf image. And I'll leave the image res stuff at the top, but hopefully this helps with readability here. Actually, let's clean it up even further. I'm going to copy this code for the leaf image res, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this inside the leaf image function, so it doesn't need a parameter. It will do the leaf image composable will do everything it needs to build its UI. And cut that code, and we'll do the same thing for, we'll do the same thing for the logo image. The logo image, and put this out. So we just moved the code we already wrote into those functions for readability, but now we've got this nice little column group right here that is very understandable. We've got a column that shows leaf image, logo image, subtitle, and 2 buttons. I think from before, where we had everything lumped together, as you read through it, it's very hard to see what each thing is, but by breaking it out into smaller functions, we make every piece more maintainable. And we can even go one last step, which is like welcome screen content or something. And now we've even got our main entry point is now very slim. So let's build and refresh. Let's see what we're working with so far. It won't look pretty, it won't match the specs, but we'll have everything on there, I think. Oh boy. Okay, so yeah, like I said, let's just zoom in on the dark one and talk about that. So as I predicted, it doesn't look pretty, but everything's there, right? We've got the image, we've got the title, the subtitle, and then the 2 buttons. And yeah, that's a good start. If we go over to the spec, so let's talk out loud about, ooh, interesting. I wonder why that color is black by default and not, So one of the things I'm noticing here is that this color is black and not white like it is in the spec. And I expected that to work out of the box. And I think it might be related to something that Ali mentioned on like using a surface instead of a box. And that has to do with the color theme we talked about, right? When we made the color theme, we noticed that some of our colors were like on primary, on background, things like that. And the way Compose resolves that is like when you set the color of a component, it knows like, are you using primary or background, and then it figures out what your content should be. And I think with the way that I use this box background modifier, I was kind of circumventing that system. So a way that we could actually work within the system, I'm going to delete this line, is if we use a surface, I actually have a parameter that I can set, which is like the color for that surface. What is the property? Yeah, it's just color. And here I can set material theme.colors.primary. And so it will make the color of the surface our primary color, and then it should know that for all of these things, it should be using our on-primary color. So let's rebuild this, and let's see if that fixes the issue. Hopefully it does. Yep. Okay, cool. So now, without really having to define the text color ourselves, we now have a text color for the subtitle that matches the background. And we can see the background is still our primary color. So that might be some of the nuance between a surface and a box, where a box is strictly a container, but a surface is better suited for like matching your theme. Interesting tidbit that maybe I'm not even explaining it as well as it could be, but interesting learnings. So the next part here is styling all of these components that we've shoved onto the screen. So let's talk about, I guess, the first steps. So the first thing I notice is like everything's shoved to the left. Also, as we highlight it, we can see the column doesn't even go to the edge of the screen. So all that is defined inside of the column. So let's go find our welcome screen content and let's modify the column. So what we want to change here is we want to make it as wide as possible. So we can do modifier.fillMaxWidth. That will extend everything to the side. We also want to set this vertical, nope, is it align? I think autocomplete doesn't like me. I think it is vertical or alignment. No, it's horizontal alignment is what I'm looking for. I don't know why autocomplete isn't working, but we want alignment.center horizontally. So we want everything to be in the center of that column, right? And we can do this. Let's build and refresh. It won't fix the spacing aspects, but it will shove everything to the center, which is the start. Cool. This is a good start. Let's kind of work top down on each component and get it styled right. So with the leaf, on the spec part, we want it to be 72 from the top. We want it to have 88 to the left, and then 48 below it. And there's a couple ways that we can go about this. One way could be to put padding on the image itself. I don't know exactly if I want that because I don't necessarily want to shrink the leaf. I just kind of want to shift it. So one way when we're working with a column is we can actually put like a spacer, which is a component, a composable to just put space between things. Really helpful in columns where like you don't want a consistent divider, but you just want some space to show up between things. So like at the top, we could put a spacer, and then we could do modifier.height. We can make this one 72 dp height. Import those things. And so this will just put 72 dp of spacing at the very top of the screen. And then below the leaf image, I think we had 48. And what I'm going to do for the leaf itself, because of the thing I wanted where I wanted the leaf to go off screen a little bit, there's actually an offset modifier. So I'm going to try that and see what that looks like. We're going to go into our leaf image. And then on this image, we're going to set the modifier. We could do offset. And we want to offset the horizontal aspect, so X, and make that 88 dp, following the spec. So let's build and refresh this. Let's see what this does to our leaf. I'm actually not even like 100% sure that this will work, but I think it will get us close. Wow, okay, it actually got us pretty close. The spacing looks right. Actually, the leaf was offset 88 dp. I think that this is, we're getting closer to something working. That went simpler than I thought. Kind of looking at where it's lined up here and looking at the specs, I actually think that we nailed it with that. So that's exciting. The icon, the app icon, is right where it needs to be, according to the spec. But we do have something to worry about here, which is the spacing between this subtitle and the top. So good question here. I always wondered how Android devs make these size spacing specs general so that it works on device size with different resolutions and aspect ratios. So for a large part, what we're doing now will work because of this dimension unit right here, this DP. So DP, or sometimes called DIPS, it stands for density independent pixels. So that was a problem as more phones came out. They had different resolutions and sizes where measuring things in pixels was no longer the right approach, right? Because 8 pixels on a low-end Android device is different than 8 pixels on like a Galaxy S20 that shoves a bunch of pixels onto the screen, right? So now we have this idea of density independent pixels where you can think of it as like a proportion to that screen resolution. So when I set something as 88 dp, that is going to look and feel the same no matter the device resolution. And so specifically for like handheld phones, this is going to be great. The only time that we really need to worry about the implications of dips is like phone versus tablet. 88 is like a good spacing on most phones, but like on a tablet, it doesn't go as further. So like maybe I'd want a larger option if I was worrying about doing this for a tablet. But that is definitely a conversation for another day. But yeah, the magic secret is in this. The unit we're using for our sizes is density independent. That's in the name, interestingly enough. Great question. Um, so I want to talk about this text view one. This is where we're not going to use a spacer. And the reason for that being actually is kind of when you look at like this markup. So sometimes when we see spacing, we see like between the button and the text here, it's strictly between the two components. But on this one, it's actually spacing from the baseline. So if I use a spacer, I'm not measuring the right thing. What this is saying is that between the baseline of the text and the top of it, there should be 32 dips. And we actually have a modifier for that called padding from baseline. So we are going to go into the app subtitle and set that modifier padding from baseline and set that to 32 dp. And do phones have common dp resolution for the whole screen? Yeah, it should be consistent within a phone. There are like buckets, so you have like phones that have like there are still buckets of like screen resolutions. Phones that have like super low versus super high. And again, as far as like spacing dimensions go, you don't have to worry about it. But sometimes if you're using image assets and not like vector assets, which are like mathematically based, but if you actually have like PNGs files, you might want different PNGs for different like buckets of aspect ratios, because otherwise you will have images that look grainy on some devices and look fine on others, or vice versa. That is one time when like different phone resolutions can be an issue. But if you're using vector assets, which are all mathematics based and they draw the same no matter what, or you're using like spacing dimensions, it's not a big deal. I hope that answers your question. And then we've got, so I'm going to add a spacer between the two buttons. I'm going to add 40 dp of spacing between the title and the first button. And I'm going to add 8 between the next one. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. We'll do that inside the column. 40 dp after the subtitle, and then 8 after the login button. And one other thing I want to do before I refresh is I want to make these two buttons as wide as possible. If you look at like the spec, they both go the whole screen. So let's do that real quick. Create a count button. On the button, we want to set the modifier fill max width. I'm just going to copy that and do the same thing on the login button. And then let's refresh our preview and see what this looks like. I think we're getting closer, y'all. Nice. Okay, we're definitely a lot closer. We still have the default button styles that don't match what we wanted from the spec, but we're getting significantly closer. And here's the light theme version down here. It's looking great. We can see on our button, or maybe you can see it and not realize it, but the text style on our buttons is using the right text style, the button text style that we defined at the beginning of the stream. So this is going really well. The last thing we need to do for this welcome screen is to make sure these get the right shape Notice they're kind of like square. We want them to be oval. And the second one doesn't have a background at all. And I'm not positive how to do that yet. We'll play around with that. Also, the second button has a different text color as well. Yeah, interesting. So let's start with the first button. So the first button, we want this to use, sorry, I'm just thinking, I'm trying to understand what these two are saying based on the style guides. So it looks to me like the button color, the actual button color, is using the secondary color from our text styles. And then the text color is using on secondary, which makes sense. So let's look at what we can modify on the button to see if we can create that. So start with create account button. I'm just hovering over, what was the keyboard shortcut that Leland taught me? Command P shows us, oh, that's not helpful. I'm going to click in the source code for button. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to look at this list and see if there's anything helpful. And there is, because right here is what I want to change. So we have this button colors property. And it looks like by default it just does button defaults.button colors. We can override this property with our own button colors. So let's do that. We're also going to need to modify shape. Control Q to see quick dock. Okay, let's try that out. Whoops. Oh no, I hit Command Q. I just closed Android Studio. Alright, chalk that up for bloopers of the stream. Oops. Let me open that back up. This reminds me of like when we used to like troll teachers and be like, ah yes, Control W. Like it refreshes. Yes. No, I'm on Mac. And so I saw Control and I was like, switch with Command. I should have known better. Usually if I press Command and I like hover over a thing, I also see the quick dock, but alright, that was great. Alright, so let's do colors real quick now that we know we need that. So inside, yeah, I should override it. We noticed there was this called a button colors. So let's do that real quick. Let's import that, and then we'll take a look at button colors. So this function is a little interesting. It shows all the different options we have for a button, right? So we have our background color, we have our content color, but we also have like the disabled state. For this app, we're not going to worry about the disabled state. We just want to override the background color. Like I said earlier, we want background color to be the material theme.colors.secondary. And one cool thing again to remember, just to look at like some Compose documentation for a quick second to help clarify how some of this stuff works, is in the button colors method. Notice here, by default, the background color is primary. And notice how for content color, they call content color 4 the background color. Thank you for that, Hale. I'll try that out again in a sec. But this is how we get away with just passing the secondary color, and then Compose is just going to know what the text color should be based on that because of this content color 4 method. So let's try this out. Command J. No, I probably have weird keyboard bindings. I'll play around with it and try something out. But the other thing I need to do to this button is I also want to modify the shape. So the default is that the shape should be small for a button, but we want it to be the medium shape in this particular app. So we're going to override that as well. We're going to say shape is material theme.shapes.medium. And so that should give it the nice rounded corner that we want. So let's build and refresh, and let's see what that looks like. Still building, sorry. I might have lost some cached stuff when I had to restart Android Studio. Oh no, why'd you go? There we go. Ooh, okay. We did something kind of weird here. That is not what that is supposed to look like. Like, it kind of worked, and then it just, like, gets clipped here for some reason. Why would it do that? Interesting. Let's comment out the modifier just to see if that's doing something weird. Let's see if we can figure out why that button was all weird shaped. Okay, nope, it's definitely something weird going on there. Let's take a look at our shape file. We set medium to rounded corner shape. No, the padding from baseline, that was set on the title, not on the button. So, let me look at the spec again, just to make sure I had the shape right. Yeah, 2040p rounded. Interesting. Why, what is weird about this? It's like it kind of works and then it just doesn't. Like, I don't know if the button needs to be bigger. I don't know if I need to do like, one thing I'm thinking about is if I want to change the button size, it could be that the button size is oh yeah, you just said what I was thinking. The button has the wrong height, so the corner radius is too large. That's exactly where my brain was starting to go. So let's try that. Let's do modifier.height. So if our corner radius is 24, and we basically want 2 rounded corners, we'll try to make this 48 dp height. So let's try that. Perfect. Alright, now it looks good. It should probably have some padding, I think, according to the docs. So let's also do, let's add some padding. We'll do it horizontal at 16 dp. Let's see how this goes. And then we'll have to talk about the second button, which I'm a little nervous about. Don't know how we're going to do that. Where'd the preview go? What did I do? That's a little weird. Sorry, I gotta let the preview rebuild here. Get out of here, Kyle. Okay, our button looks good. So now we just need to build the second button. And I'm a little unsure how to do this because it actually looks like that is, what am I looking for? So in this one, the text color is our, actually this is really interesting. So this text color, I don't think it's coming from our design system directly because on light it's the pink 900, which is secondary, but on the dark it's just white, which is not what our secondary color is. So I think this button, oh, text button, is that a thing? I'm learning something new every day. Let's try it. Let's make login a text button. And let's build and refresh and see what that looks like. I also, before I forget though, I do want this to have the same padding just so that the text lines up at the same place as the other one. Okay, so that did kind of work, but the text color isn't. Oh my god, sorry. As I click around, it keeps refreshing. So the second button now is transparent. It's a text button, but the color doesn't quite. Yeah, the color's not right. So I think in this case, following the specs, we have to set the text color ourselves. So let's do that. Text color is going to be, well, let's start light. Now I could inline this is light. I could say, if material themes, that colors, that is light. Part of why I'm splitting it up is just for readability for y'all or for people who follow this code base after this stream. I find that just that one extra little variable helps clean some of this up. So if we're on the light theme, we want pink 900. And then otherwise we want white. And I think, I'm assuming that on a text button I can set the text color directly. Oops, nope, can I not do that? Oh, it looks like I need to override text button colors. Nope, that's not what I want. How do I... Sorry, I'm just looking to see if there's... Oh. Sorry. I don't put it on the text button. I want to put it on the text. On the text, I can set the text color, I think. Is that not right? Oh. Named arguments to avoid it yelling at me. Oh, it's just color. Autocomplete, still a little confusing. Okay, I think this will do it. So yeah, we pass the text into the text button, and then we want to set the color there, not on the text button. There we go. Look at how good that looks. So that's the dark theme. I zoom in a little bit. That looks right. And we'll scroll down to the light theme. That looks good too. Awesome. We successfully made it to our first screen. Super exciting. Thank you for all of you who helped me get over a couple bumps. I'm going to do one more tiny thing, and then I'll commit this code, and then I'm going to take a 30-second to a minute break, and then we'll come right back and do this in a second. The thing that I want to do before a quick break is I want to run over to main activity. Let's delete all this sample code from earlier, and we're going to launch the welcome screen. So what I'm doing here is I just want to run this on an actual device, see what it looks like, and then when we come back, we can move on to the login screen, which will be the next one. And it's good to hit these breakpoints. I'm going to upload this little code along to YouTube when we're done, and I plan to put, where's screen copy? Did I lose it? I think screen copy died because my device fell asleep. But wow, this looks good. Look how good this looks. This is super exciting. That came out really well, I think. Great. So yeah, I'm excited to take these little pauses because I plan to put this on YouTube, and I'll make sure to use the video markers so I can mark as we go through each screen, so it's easy for people to watch this in bits, because we're already pretty far into the stream, but we're not stopping. We're going to keep going. But yeah, thanks for that. I'm going to take a short break, get some more water. Y'all feel free to get up, stretch your legs, get some more water too. I will throw on some more little lo-fi beats for the background. And yeah, we will be back in a few moments. Alright, thank you all for waiting. Hopefully y'all had a good chance to take a break, stretch your legs as well. I will fill fluff for a few more seconds in case some of you did go get up. Make sure everyone's back before we get started again. While I do that, I guess I'll commit this code because I didn't do that yet. So adding welcome screen. Awesome. Make sure if you guys haven't seen the project yet, check it out on GitHub, star it. I will post the link there in a second, although I think Nightbot should be dropping it periodically. Yeah, there's a link to the project, so feel free to reference this code anytime. Hopefully it serves as a good reference. But making good progress. We have our welcome screen done already. Cool to see as we I'm actually just noticing an interesting thing, that like as we click on this button we can see like the shadow increase. That's expected, we want that. But notice when I click on the text button it's still square. It doesn't have the same shape as the other one. And so let's see if, just as a fun learning exercise, if we can get it to mirror and have a ripple effect that matches the other button. And I think the way we can do that is finding this button. So if text button also lets me modify shape, which it looks like it does, we can also give this our medium shape. That we just did this on the primary button right before the stream. And then we also saw we had to give it a special height that allowed our medium shape to work. So let's run this and let's see if that makes a difference in how the ripple effect looks on this button. Just a fun little nice to have. Yeah, look at that. So now when we click on login, when we long press, the ripple effect matches the other button, so we can see that this is the same style here. That's a subtle touch, but I think that's really nice. Cool. Sufficing shape of login button. Alright, so what do we want to do now? Well, the next thing we want to do is to build out the login screen. Here's what that looks like. This one's going to be fun. Because I don't really know a lot about working with text inputs in Jetpack Compose yet. So I'm a little nervous about making this work, but we'll try it out. We'll see how far we get. So this one actually though, it doesn't look like it's too bad. It looks like it's another column of stuff. We just throw in this title, some text inputs, a label. This is an interesting one because it has some portions that are underlined, but not the whole string. And then it has this button. In the interest of time, I may skip this underlined portion to start, and then maybe at the end of the stream we can kind of do a polish. We'll see how fast this login screen goes, and start from there. We'll also see, we've been streaming a while, we'll see what time it is when we're done with login, and we'll see where we're going to go next. So let's talk about login. So I think building the column of information should be very similar to the last screen. We can throw in this text. Looks like we'll have another padding from baseline thing, which is an interesting... It's kind of interesting to think about building this and then setting the padding from baseline as 184. It just feels really weird to say like this whole thing is one text. But when the plan here is to just implement a design, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it to implement the design. And then we can add a little spacer, more space, more padding from top, padding from baseline, and then this button. And maybe we'll look at, and then maybe after we build this screen, we'll look at trying to share some code across composables, because I'm realizing this login button, the style of this button, is the same as the create account button at the top. You know, it's the same as this right here. And so maybe we'll, when we get to adding this, we'll try to share some code and create like our own composable that will give the same style to both screens. We'll also want to talk about hooking up navigation between these screens, which I think we'll do after we build it. So let's do the same thing as the last screen, and let's stub out the composable function and the two preview methods, and then we'll start building something. So create a new file here, and this will be login screen. There'll be a composable function, do a little bit of boilerplate here. We'll do one preview. Bloom theme, dark theme. Megan, thank you for the follow. Megan, you're the best. I've been streaming for a year and I finally got a follow. I had to work hard for that one. Oh, let me make sure that you're not trying to get my attention. Did you send me an important message? Okay, we're good. Just making sure that I wasn't missing an important message. Because I put my phone on Do Not Disturb when I do this. Preview. Oh my god. Now I'm flustered. Preview light login. Login screen. Go do plants. Aren't they beautiful? Is this some... Don't you like this little Monstera leaf? Megan loves plants. So. A plant streamer, I should. We should get her hooked up on Twitch and see some of Megan's plants. Alright, so we've stubbed out the previews for the login screen. What do we want to do now? I guess we will... Don't test me on plant facts. Let's kind of do the same as last... Well, we'll do this a little different than the last screen. On the last screen, we just dumped everything in and then we worked on the styling. Now that we have a little more understanding of Compose, let's try to do some of the styling as we go. So maybe I'll build out the column, I'll try to style everything right, and then I'll run the preview after each row item to try that out. So let's start off with this H1, that's login with email. And what else am I missing? It looks like that color there is the material theme background color. So let's use that. Let's create a surface. The color will be material theme.colors.background. Nope. Oh. And inside of here, we'll throw in a column. Yes, that is Adam's partner. I didn't want to draw attention to her in that way unless she wanted it. But yes, that is Megan. It's my beautiful girlfriend. She has a plant Instagram, Megan. If you want to plug your Instagram, go for it. You can see much cooler plant pictures than anything I can throw together. Oh god. We want to set this modifier for this one. Fill max width again. We also want that horizontal alignment equals alignment dot center horizontally. That looks good. I will do my squiggly lines, don't worry. So let's start by setting up the text. And that is going to be, what is it called here? Log in with email. Is it capital E? No. And this one, the style is going to be material theme.typography.h1. And yeah, let's build this preview and let's see what this... Oh, the other thing is the padding from baseline being super large. What was it? We wanted 184. Ooh. And also I want to make sure the surface fills the whole space of the phone. So let's do that. Okay. Sorry, that was a little fast. Please let me know if I start going too fast. But I'll kind of gloss over some things that we've already seen earlier in the stream. But we've created a surface. We've got a column of information. Right now we're just adding the text that says login with email. Cool. Great start. Not a whole lot to talk about with the text thing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put so each of these squares, I don't know if you can see them, enhance this spec grid that Android gives you. This is an 8-dip grid. So each square is 8 dips. So we're going to go ahead and add a little spacer that is 16 dips, and then we're going to add text. Our text needs to be 56 dips high for email address. So let's try that out. Let's add our spacer. I'll fire that height. What did I just say? 16. And another cool thing, I didn't talk about this, so when you're working with a column in Jetpack Compose, you can set like a space, a consistent space between items, but this column isn't using a consistent space, so I didn't build it that way. But you don't have to use a spacer. If you find yourself using a spacer that is the same across multiple items, you can specify it on the column. Let me know if anyone's interested in knowing how to do that, and I can share it. But let's do, I think we have, yep, we're going to do an outline text field. The value, I don't know if that's, so I think we will have to change that later. How do I do this? What am I missing? Oh, and then I also need to do on value changed. So here we're going to do nothing. So I think that we will need to do a little state management when we actually run this to deal with, like, as we type, the text field updates. But for now, we're just going to set it as empty. We just want to prototype the screen, and then we'll make it work. And then also on an outline text field, we can set a label, and that is the property that's used for the hint is the word for it in the existing framework. So this is a composable function. We can put whatever we want for the label, but here we're going to use a text, and we're going to say email address. I think that's all we need to do. We'll try it. We'll run it in a second. We'll see how it works. I'm going to do the same thing for password with 8 spaces in the middle. So let's do that real quick. We'll do another spacer that is 8dp, and let's copy this outline text field because we basically want the same thing, but we're going to change the text to be password 8+ characters. And again, like, we're not actually going to enforce that as a thing. I'm just trying to match the spec. So let's build and refresh. Let's see what this login screen starts to look like. Find out if I got close to the mark or I'm way off. Well, now I'm not even seeing anything. Are you okay? It's building. Sorry. Nice. Okay. So these don't fill the whole width, these inputs, which I don't like. So let's do that. Let's add them. The 16 dp are from the headlines baseline. Will a 16 dp spacer do that? Good question. I don't think I did that right then. Because that spacer will be from the bottom of the text. That was a really good question. I guess I need to overlay a grid on top of this to know if I did it right. But to do it the way that you mentioned, the padding from baseline has both a top and bottom. So by default, what I was passing here is the top, the padding from to the top of the baseline. Let's change this to setting 16 dp as bottom of the baseline and getting rid of this spacer. I think that will be better. I think that the spacer is pretty close, especially if it's one line. And I actually don't know if we can tell after refreshing. I guess you could probably tell slightly that it's a little closer. That was a good catch. I guess depending on if you have one line text, a spacer and padding from baseline are going to be very similar. But I guess from a technical standpoint, what we just changed it to was probably better. So thank you for catching that. Let's add a modifier onto these text fields real quick to make them match the whole screen. Fill max width. I'm going to copy that and throw that here too. And then I will do the same trick as before. I'm going to extract these out into their own methods just to make the screen a little more readable. Did I not do it? I don't think it updated. There we go. Close. And then I didn't get the padding I wanted. I think for this screen, if you look at, and maybe I should have done this on login too, if you look at all of these, they all have this 16 dip margin on them. I can actually set the padding on the surface itself. And so everything inside of it will get that margin. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go up to, I can put it on the surface, I could put it on the column. I guess maybe it'd be better to put it on the column. Can I set padding values on a column? I don't think I can. I need to do modifier dot padding. I can say horizontal equals 16.dp. So now let's rebuild this preview, and we should have some good spacing on these. Nice. It's all coming together. I love it. What's next on this screen? What's next is I'm going to actually split these out into their own methods to help them out. So we're going to have our login header. We're going to have our email input. And then we're going to extract this one out into password input. And we'll come back and we'll style them, get them to actually accept input later on. But let's not worry about that right away. What's next? Next, we need this terms of use and privacy policy text. So let's do that. Let's see if Adam's brain can remember all of that text. Clicking below. You know what? I cannot remember it. Brain cannot remember it. I have it on my other screen. I'm just gonna look at it. I don't know why I'm trying to remember the whole string. To our privacy pop. Oops, sorry, that took us way off screen, but that really is just a bunch of text. I can even shift it. And the style for this one is a good question. This is body 2. So let's rebuild that and run it. I don't know why I put so much thought into this particular text field, because we all know this is like the most common lie told in all of human history. I have read and agree to these terms of service. No one reads them. Like, it's just, we just do it, and then we all sign our life away and hope for the best. I don't know why I'm not getting cool. Interesting that this, interesting that the gravity of this doesn't center. I guess because it's so long. That's why capitalism is so egregious, exactly. Let's talk about that. Well, we need padding from baseline on this one. Oh, and this is a good thing, CCADdy, if you're still here. This one, they clearly show it like the 16 dp is actually a space after the text on this one, but it looks like above it, it uses the baseline, 24 dp above the baseline. So let's add that. Let's also, I'll try to figure out how to center that. I think there's an alignment on text that we can do. Yeah, we could set a text align. Text align dot center. And we'll extract that onto its own method, terms of service label. Text align center, padding from baseline. That's what changed since this last run. So let's run this, see how it looks. Okay, why on this page I'm like I have to like refresh the preview twice to get my changes. I don't know what's going on with that. Nice, that looks a little better. And then the last thing we need on this screen is 16 dp spacing, and then we need a button. And I'm going to add the spacing really quick, but I'm going to talk about the button because, as we mentioned, that is the same kind of button that appeared on the other screen. So this would be a good chance to show how we can make like our own composable. The spacing is from the baseline? It is from the top, but I don't think that this space right here, isn't this considered the baseline where this first line is? So I was thinking I need 24 dp from the baseline, but the second spacing between the text and the button would just be a spacer. That's my understanding of this. But I could have a misunderstanding. I don't know. I think I'm going to go with the space. I guess it goes below the line by like a pixel. I don't think it goes below the line. It definitely doesn't go as far below as like these ones do. But I guess you can kind of see like a pixel below the line. But here it's much more noticeable that like the Y and the G went below the baseline. And I mean, text can't have two baselines, right? I'm gonna go with the spacer. After I add the button, we'll see how it looks. I think in this case it will be fine. Yeah, maybe maybe the underline seems. Yeah. Once I add the button, we'll see how it looks. Maybe this is a separate discussion on the nitty gritty, but I'm gonna try and space it and see how it works. But I'm gonna go back and show how we can share some code across the application because I don't want to repeat all the button styling that I already did, right? So let's create a new file here, and we're going to call it a Bloom primary button. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into our welcome screen. I'm going to take this create account button. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste that in here. Whoops. Let's make a composable function first. I'm just going to paste all that. So looking at this Bloom primary button, let's think about what actually is going to change each time we use it. It looks like it's interesting that I call it primary button because it uses a secondary color. So maybe I will call it Bloom secondary button. Because I think in each place that it's used, we want to use the secondary color. So that can stay the same. The shape is the same. Really, the only thing that's different is the text. So what we can do is we can make that a function argument. We can make it button text, and have it take in a string. And then we can pass in the button text there. Now, it's possible when we go to actually hooking up these different screens, I may also want to pass in the onClick function. Someone said that right as I got there. But for this moment in time, when I'm just stubbing out screens, I'm going to leave that out. But keep that in mind, we'll probably come back and have that be passed in. So let's update this in both spots. Let's go to our welcome screen. Let's take this text and let's replace this with a Bloom secondary button. And then our button text will be create account. So, and let's build and refresh the preview for the welcome screen and make sure it still looks good. I actually don't know if it actually updated. Yeah, it looks like it's still working fine. Great. So now we can go to our login screen, and here we can do a Bloom secondary button, and the button text will be login. And even though it's just this one line, to keep with the consistency of the rest of the column, I'm going to put it in its own function just for consistency here. So the whole column that we made reads just the component names. Cool. I think this looks good. What I'm going to do for one more testing sake is, yeah, look at that. There's the button now. This looks great. Excuse me. What I'm going to do, one more thing for testing sake, is I'm going to update the main activity. Because I haven't hooked up any navigation, I'm just going to have this instead launch the login screen so we can see what it looks like on device. And hopefully it looks good. And what we can do before we move on is maybe work through some of the text inputs. Yeah, this looks great. It looks a little grainy on screen copy, at least to me it does. But yeah, one thing to note here is, ooh, interesting. A highlight is not a good color, but I don't think the specs told me what it should look like. And also, as I type, nothing is updating. And that's actually by design right now. So let's talk about that in a second. But that's a start. That's our login screen. I want to check the spec to see habit. Also, because the keyboard shortcut that I'm used to using for like running wasn't working. Something about the Android Studio Canary screwed over my keyboard shortcuts. But I'm gonna make a quick commit here. Implementing design for login screen. We still have more to do on the login screen, but that was the stub for the design. So let me know if y'all have any questions about the design portion of the login screen. We are still going to go ahead and work on playing around with text inputs. I think this is a good time to show how to work with text inputs in Compose. But if there's any questions about like the column or any of that stuff that we just made, let me know. Now's your window to do that. Yeah, the specs don't show what the text input would look like once it's selected. So it's a little weird that it uses this green color, which I think is our primary color. It probably looks better on the light theme than it does on the dark theme. But yeah, that's interesting. I just want to look at this color palette then, see what I'm if I'm missing anything. Yeah, be an interesting question to see if other people who've built the dev challenge have thought about this. I don't know if I need to make this selected control a different color, but it's a start. So looks like we're all good with the stubbing out this page. So let's talk about text inputs and why that when I type stuff, nothing happens. So I'll show you a short solution to this. In a real world application, you might want to do state management a little differently, but we'll talk through how it would work in Compose, at least in my understanding of it. So let's go to login screen, And let's go to email input to start. So here we set the text value as just a string, and it's an empty string. And that's fine to start, but then an on value changed, we don't do anything. In order to make this work, we need to keep track of what that text should be. And we can use something in Compose called state. And I think if I remember right, I'm kind of doing this from memory, but we can set this text state, and then we want to keep track of this, so we use remember, and then we can say mutable state of, and then by default it will just be an empty string. So let's import these. And so the value will be text state dot value, right? And then when the value changes, this is our new string that gets passed in here. We can do, oops, let me just go over here. We can do text state dot value equals new string. So anytime that on value changed is called, we're going to update this mutable state. That will cause this composable to re-render, and now we will have an updated text inside of it. Let's run this, let's see it in action. So we did that for email address. So we can start typing, boom, it worked out. I don't know how clear it is to read for y'all, but hopefully you saw as I type, the text field updates as well. So that's the short solution to keeping track of the text state. Like I said, in a real world application, you might do it a little differently than just this like local property. But for an app where we're just trying to stub out the UI, this local property is enough. Double tap control will open run anything. Interesting. Wasn't familiar with that. Another interesting thing I could have done, I don't know if y'all know this, but on your preview functions, you can run a composable preview by itself. So like my phone is in dark theme, but I can go to my preview light login and I can hit run preview light login, and it will run just that composable by itself. And so I didn't even need to change like my device theme. And you notice I have the status bar again because it didn't actually run my main activity. It ran just this composable, so I can see what the light theme looks like. Oh man, that looks even worse, the highlighted control. So definitely maybe something we can change. Will saving the state like that also keep the text through config changes? I don't know, but we can test that. I think yes, but I don't know. Okay, the answer is no. I do not know off the top of my head how to keep it through config changes. I know if we were doing a large app and we had this hooked up to like live data or something like that, in like a view model, then it would save across config changes. Yeah, you could use a view model. Another thing is, that's a good question. I also don't know if it's could be because I have the state local inside this function. Maybe if I did it further up, like inside the activity where I call set content, maybe that would persist. I don't know though. It's a good question. There's probably some documentation out there, but I don't want to make a total guess. But I think in a production app, like C. Kenny mentioned, like a view model is probably what I would use to solve this problem. But here I just wanted it locally, so I can show you how to work with text input. I think there was something else. One other thing I wanted to show, just for learning's sake. It wasn't required to matching this spec, but another thing to learn about is how do I customize keyboard inputs? On like the existing Vue framework, we can set like a text type or input type or something like that on an edit text. So on a text field, we have a similar thing where specifically it's this field called keyboard options. and it uses this keyboard options.default property. And we can take that and then customize the behavior we want. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to say keyboard options equal keyboard options.default, and I want to copy the defaults, but there's something in here called keyboard type, and I can set that at keyboard type.email. And let me fix this up so this compiles. So what this will now do is anytime I run this input and I click on the email input, it will have a email address like input form set up. So basically the only way that looks different is now like the little @ symbol is here on my keyboard. This would be more noticeable if I tried like, keyboard type dot number, right? Then I would see that when I run this and when I open up the input, I will get as if it were like a phone number input. Yeah. So I just wanted to include that. It wasn't needed to match the spec, but I wanted to include that so y'all would know where to look for like customizing the keyboard that's used in your text inputs. And similar to this customization is, how do I blur a password? Because if I took this same idea from text state and I put this on password, which is where? Right here. I'll be able to type into password now, but the problem will be, I don't remember what I call this. The problem will be that I'll actually see the text. So let me run this, let me demonstrate what I mean. It's like when I add a password and I start typing, I can see it in the text field. And really what I want is like those little dots that usually show up on a password input for security. And we do that through another property or another function parameter that I think is called visual transformation. And you can create your own visual transformation on text, but one of the ones that comes built in is this password visual transformation. And oops, let me close the sidebar so you can see the whole string. But that's all we need to do. We set the visual transformation, the password visual transformation, and now when I run this, the actual text on the input will show the little dots for password. Look at that. So now no one knows what I typed, except for the fact that I guess you can see autocomplete right here. But there may be like a keyboard option to avoid that. I'm not going to worry about that here. But yeah, that was some quick stuff on text inputs. Hope that was interesting. Let me know if you have any questions on that. Another good spot to commit. But I will make sure to take each of these sort of commits as a breakpoint in the YouTube video to help split this up for people who catch the stream after. So that's our login screen. And I think that's everything we need to worry about for now. Maybe, again, afterwards, there's a keyboard option thingy for password. Interesting. I'm going to copy this then. I'm going to paste that in here. There is a password keyboard type. I don't know what that gives us. Let's run it and look at it. It's possible that the keyboard type for password just hides that stuff. Yeah, so now we can see that as I type, I don't see the like autocomplete. Yeah, that's exactly what it did. Cool, so that's another safety measure good to have in case someone's looking over my shoulder or you're live streaming your password. So what I'm going to do for now, I'm going to also commit this password keyboard type. And I'm going to now work on hooking up the navigation between the welcome and login screen. No, I still want the visual transformation there because there were two things. The keyboard type changes what shows up on the soft keyboard, so that's what removed the auto completion. and the visual transformation is what gave us the little circles instead of the real characters. So you need both in this example. Or like you need at least the visual transformation. But ideally you would use both to make it a little more secure. So what I'm going to do next, before I move on to the home screen, where all the good stuff is going to happen, this stream's going to be way longer than I thought it was. But before I move on to the home screen, I want to hook up navigation so we can move from our welcome screen to our login screen. I don't know if in my Gradle file if the template included the navigation, the Compose navigation stuff. It doesn't look like it did. So I'm going to need to pull up some documentation on this before I try it. Yeah, let's try that, Trax, before I move on. I could have totally misled y'all and been totally wrong. Let's see if the keyboard type itself applies it for us. So I commented out visual transformation. We will run this and let's see what happens. Okay, so my keyboard doesn't have autocomplete. But look, see, if I start typing, I can still see the characters. So it does look like we need both. One manages the soft keyboard, and one manages the visual appearance. Good to know. Good learning exercise. So let me pull up the docs on Compose navigation because I know I will need a Gradle dependency to add before I can do this. Yep, this guy right here. And then I think I remember how to do this, and I can walk y'all through it. But let's go to our applications build.gradle file, and let's just dump this in here and do a quick Gradle sync. So the way that we can deal with navigation in Compose is we first need to keep track of a nav controller. And we can use the same sort of syntax we could do remember nav controller, which will keep track of the nav controller as we rebuild this composable. And then we want to set up a nav host with that nav controller and then a default destination, which is a string. Here we're going to call it welcome. Let's import that. And, oops, let me slide this over. I guess we don't actually need the preview on the activity screen. So inside our nav host, we need to define a composable for like each screen. So for each one, we use this composable function. We give it a name or like a route. So here, we want our first one to be welcome. And then the trailing lambda is like a composable function of what should show up when we go to that route. So here we want welcome screen. And then we want another composable, we'll call it login, and then that will be our login screen. Now this doesn't actually navigate from one screen to another. It just sets up the plumbing to be able to navigate. So if I run this app, what we're going to see is this will launch the welcome screen. But like I said, nothing is going to happen once we launch this screen. So, or like this screen launches, but as I click on these buttons, nothing happens yet. So let's hook these buttons up to some navigation. There's two approaches we could take in this contrived example. One option could be on the welcome screen, we could pass in like a click listener and say like, do this when login button is clicked. Another way is we could just pass the nav controller into the welcome screen, and then the welcome screen will be responsible for actually navigating when a button is clicked. And that's what I'm going to do just for simplicity. So let's go to welcome screen and have this accept the nav controller argument. And then we're going to need to keep passing this down into the layers we created earlier. We need to pass this into our content function. And then we want to pass the nav controller for this contrived example just into the login button. And then inside this login button, oops, we can go to our login button's onClick function. And here we can do navcontroller.navigate and give it the route we want to go to, which is going to be login. And this is the same string we used on the main screen. Inside main activity, we gave it this route login. So now when our welcome screen launches and we click on the text button, we will navigate to login. Now we do have a warning at the bottom here because our preview function doesn't work. Here we can just, because we don't really need the nav controller in the preview, we can just pass like remember nav controller and forget about it. But that gets our preview passing. So let's run the app, and now when I click on the login button, it should launch the login screen. And let's hope for the best. I don't know if I clicked on it. There we go. Ta-da! We're navigating in Compose. I find that like the Compose navigation to be very quick to work with. That did not take a lot of work at all, and then it does manage the backstack, so I can swipe back and go between these screens without an issue. Love it. So let's go ahead and push that navigation stuff. Looks like I've got some unused imports. Let me just clean those up real quick. Awesome. And now we can work on the home screen. The last stretch, but arguably like the most complicated portion of the app, but also the one most full of plants. So if Megan's still here, now she gets to see all the pretty plants as I build this. We're definitely going to have to do this incrementally. We go from like, we've got a search bar, we've got like these themes, which are a horizontal list of plant themes. We've got this vertical list of actual plants, I guess. And then we've got this bottom navigation. I don't know where to start. I think I might start top to bottom. We'll build out this column that has, like, we'll build out the input, then we'll build out the themes, then we'll build out the design your home garden section, and then we'll do the bottom bar last. Hopefully that sounds like a good plan. Let me know what y'all think. If any of you want to see a specific part first, we could work on that. But I think I'm going to work top down. So, let's do that. Oh man. Sorry, just thinking about this, thinking about where to start. It looks like I'm actually just thinking about yeah. All right, let's get started. Let's do the same thing we've been doing, where we will stub out the screen and the previews for it. So we've got home screen. Oops. And let's stub that out and the previews. Composable. I wonder if there is like a, maybe I'll set up some sort of like live template in Android Studio to set up these preview functions. To make it a little easier to write them at one time or something like that. Alright, so the same thing that we've always been doing. Let's make a surface. The background, or whoops, the color is going to be background. And then we wanted to fill the space that we've got. So like even if I were to like build this preview now, pretty sure we would just see a phone with like our background color. And inside of it is going to be a column. We do want the same padding that we've been adding on this. 16 dp horizontal padding on the column. As far as the arrangement of this column compared to previous ones, so on the other screens we've had this like center alignment, or like, yeah, this center aligned stuff, but here it looks like we actually want to keep things left aligned. And then within each individual component that we work with, like the search bar, we could make that, as wide as it could possibly be. So let's start there. Let's make another outlined text field for search. Now for this example, we just earlier in the video showed how to deal with text. For this example, I'm not going to save the text state. I'm just going to build this for part of the design. So let's do an outline text field. And we'll do nothing as we'll set it as empty. We'll do nothing as it changes. We can get rid of these actually. We do want to set a label, which is text for search. And there is one interesting thing about this input, is that it has this leading icon. And I think there is a function for that. Yeah, we could set a leading icon. And in here we could put icon. Let's get rid of these. New icon, and I forgot how we reference it. I think to reference a material design icon, we do icons.default.search. And then it needs a content description, but again, because this doesn't provide any additional value, it's not actually a content image, it's just fluff on the search input, we'll set the content description to null. I should also note that our input had 40 dp of space above it. So let's put that spacer. And let's also put this in its own function. We'll call it search input. And let's build this preview and see how that looks. Sorry, preview's a little wonky. I find that for the vast majority of my experience learning Compose, the tooling has been great, but every once in a while I find something. Cool. That worked. What I'm missing is, so I want the modifier to be as wide as possible, but then I also need that on the search input. I need search input to be as wide as possible. So let's rebuild that. Let's see how that looks. We can also worry about the size of this icon. I don't know what it is by default, but I did notice in the specs it says that it should be 18. So we can do that here on the icon. We can set the modifier equals modifier dot, oh god, that is not how you type. We could set size, when I say 18 dp. And if we use just size, that should set width and height to the same value. At least that's my understanding of it. So let's build and refresh. Cool. I actually don't know if it changed, but looks like it's matching the design. Search, oh god, it's behind my face. Looks like the search is starting to match the design, so we're already off to a good start. Now we get to do browse themes, the fun part, and then do this horizontally scrolling list. And that, I'm already worried about something, but let me start to build it, and then we might have to go back. So this will be part of the learning exercise. So we've got to add this H1 heading for browse themes. So let's start there. And it has 32 dp padding from baseline. So let's add that real quick. So we've got text. What was it called? Browse favorites? Browse themes. The style is going to be material theme.typography. Yes, more compose. That's all we've been doing tonight, Jason. One. And then we needed padding from baseline on this. And I'm going to extract this out into its own method. This time I'm going to call it browse themes section, because I'm going to put the that little scrolling list right inside of here, I think. Well, actually, we'll see how that goes. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Let's do build and refresh just to make sure the headline shows up right. Nice. Alright, so the headline works. This looks so readable. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm really trying to extract things out into small methods after I type them to help with that readability. But now it's going to get hard. Everything we've built so far. Let me show this to Jason, who just got here, real quick. But we have built this welcome screen for Bloom. Just use Compose and Hinge. You have the power. You can make this happen. We built this nice welcome screen, which leads into a nice login screen. And then we are now going to move from the login screen to the home screen. That's where we're at right now. But as you can see, the last two screens, everything was pretty static. And now it's going to get complicated. Now we're going to have to try to build this horizontally scrolling list with all these little cards. So let's talk about how we're going to build that. So there's two things to think about here. Like, one is I've been hard coding a lot of text so far, and that's been fine. But when I think about building this horizontal list, I don't necessarily want to hard code every list item. I actually want to make like a Kotlin data class. We can call it like a plant theme, and then we can have it take an image res and a title, and then we'll pass in a list of plant themes, and we'll use that to build our scrolling list. So let's take a small pause from the actual Compose code to write the Kotlin code we're going to need to do that. So I'm going to pull up the doc on the other screen so I can quickly reference these as I write them. Looks like the horizontal list is just 5 items, so that shouldn't be too bad. Let's call it a plant theme. And we're going to make a data class plant theme, and it's going to have an image res and a title. And again, without thinking about building like a real world application, let's just stub out some defaults here. So we'll call it default plant themes list of. We can do plant theme. And so I am just looking at the spec and writing out each of the list items myself so that we can then use these to create the cards. Terrariums. We've got jungle vibes. That's what my apartment feels like with all of the plants. Plant theme, easy care. And we've got statements. Your plants should make a statement. Cool. So those are the 5 plant themes that we're going to need to add to our vertically scrolling, or our horizontally scrolling list. So let's build out each component. We need to make this card. So let's start there. Let's make a new function, new file, new composable. We're going to call it plant theme card. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to create a composable, and it's going to take in the plant theme. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add a preview for each type. So we're going to add a preview, make it private, preview dark card, and then preview light card. So here we'll do bloom theme. Dark theme is true. Plant theme card. And I need to give it a plant theme. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do default plant themes that first. The first one of my dummy data. Let's copy that, put that to our light preview, change this. So again, moving kind of fast. If you're coming in for the first time, you might have seen that I did that really fast. That was something we did earlier in the stream. We're just setting up a preview function for a light theme and dark theme version of this plant card that we're about to create. So let's create our card in here. I don't think I need to set any properties on the card yet. We'll run it and we'll see it. But if we look at what needs to exist in this card here, so we're going to use a row here, or no, a column again, which lays things out vertically. We're going to have this image view followed by some text. It's worth noting this text is going to be H2. In this image, it's going to be as wide as possible. I will need to set the card size. Let me go ahead and fill out what's going to be inside the card, and then I'll do that part. So let's set a column. We're going to set an image, which will be plant theme.image res. Oops, actually, I need painter resource. Plant theme.image res. Content description. I guess we can make the description of this like the title. Although I guess if like we were using a screen reader, that might be a little weird because the title, like the image, would then be red and so would the title below it. So maybe we could do something like we can, if we were thinking about accessibility here, we would do like the title and then image afterwards. So if you use a screen reader, it becomes clear like, this is the image for this plant theme. And then we want text. The text is going to be our plant theme.title, and the style for this is material theme.typography.h2. So we can look at the preview for this. It won't be flashy, it won't be styled right, but it should lay out each of our items for us. Ooh. Yeah, okay, so it's kind of right. We can see the card. It looks like it's using the right text colors, yep. So this looks good. Here's a couple things I noticed off the bat from our preview. The card, by default, it uses the medium shape, but we want ours to use the small shape, so it has a little smaller corner radius. We also are going to want some padding around the text. I'm not sure how much. Let's go look at our specs, see if that gives us some helpful information. So if we zoom in here, we can see it looks like this has like the title has some padding at the start. I guess we could set the padding all around as maybe 16 dp. And the card itself, it has a height of 136. Now it looks like these cards are square. So I'm going to assume that I'm going to make the size of the card 136 dips. I'm going to set 16 dp padding around the text, and let's see what we get from that. Modifier dot size. What did I just say? 136. And on the text, we want to give that some padding of 16. So let's rebuild this preview. Let's see what this looks like. Oops. Gotta import some stuff. Oh, interesting. Uh, okay, so the card's the right size. What I screwed up is that I added all this extra padding around the text, and now it doesn't look right. So maybe we'll only set it as, I know what we can do. We can set this as horizontal padding, and that will fix part of it. Actually, will that just fix it? Why are you still cut off? Okay, that kind of fixed it, except like now it's I need to find a way to, oops, let me change this so it's a little more clear for y'all. I need to find a way to get this text to be like vertically centered in between the, what's the word for it? In between the bottom of the image and the bottom of the card. So one way I could do this is with like weights. So I could give like the I could actually, I think what I can do is I can set the text. I think I can set it to fill max height. But in order for that to work, I need to make sure the image also has a fixed size, I think. How can I do that? Can I do that? I wonder if this image has like an aspect ratio. Um, Interesting. So this is like 40 dB. I'm not so much worried about padding from baseline as like I want it to be centered within this space that's left. So I think one way I can do that is I can make sure this image has a fixed size. And then I'll know what space is remaining based on that. So it's kind of doing some math here. There's 40 dips from the bottom of the card to the image view. So what if I set the what if I gave this image fixed size? So we've got, you know, the width would also be 136, and then the height would be 96, right? Yeah, if I take away 40. I want to see what this looks like. I think this might get me close to what I want. I guess not really. Did you not do anything differently? Okay, well, I kind of got somewhere. One thing I need to do, I want to change this image. I want it to actually fill the space. Let's do content scale here. We'll do crop for this one, I think. I don't know if that does what I want. Yeah, okay, so that was better. And then the text view, it fills the max height. So maybe as a hacky solution, the rightmost image seems to be taller than the other two in the spec. Interesting. I'll look at that in a second. I think a hacky solution here is there a text align that center vertical? Oh, there's just center. I wonder if I like center the text align, if that will work. No, it doesn't look like that did what I wanted. There's got to be something where like I have this column. The first item is fixed height, and I want there is vertical alignment. Yeah. Let me see if I can do something like that. Let's remove these for now. The column does have vertical arrangement, Um, there's spaced evenly. Maybe what I want. Um, what is spaced around? I don't know what that means. Maybe spaced evenly, but I think that will screw it up, and it won't put the card at the. It won't put the image at the top. I don't think. Yeah. So that was kind of close. Um, let's look at the arrangement class and let's see if we can look at everything available to us. And so we've got yeah, I guess I won't understand these. Never mind. What is the default value for this? It's arrangement.top. I wonder if try the modifier on the text. Okay, that's what I was just gonna think of, is if there was something column specific that I could do. No. It won't autocomplete, but there might be something on like column scope for me to do. I feel like there's got to be something for this. You're right, but I don't know if I can find if I'll be able to find it. Let me see if I can find column scope. So there's column scope.align, and maybe that's good enough. Maybe I can do align and then do alignment center vertically. Oh, can I not? You just align that center. No? Why are you yelling at me? Oh. Because I need a horizontal, but I don't want that. Gravity? Maybe. Oh, I thought that was a thing. Wow, so weird that this isn't like. Is there a similar like fill maybe? Let me go back to column scope, see what else we have. Yeah, like I thought about setting weight, and the weight would help in that it would tell it to fill whatever space is left, but then it wouldn't like align within that. I feel like there's gotta be a way to describe this in Compose land. I just don't know what it is. So maybe something I might do is what's 8 times 3? 624. So what another hack I might try is doing padding from baseline here too. Let's just set the padding from baseline as 24, which is about 3 units. Let's try this out. It's a little hacky. I don't know if it's robust depending on the size of the cards. Ooh, that got worse a little bit. Why did that get worse? Like that felt like it moved further in. Maybe I want to do the baseline padding first. Oh god. Let's try that. Sometimes the order of modifiers matters. Oh my god, we were so close. Oh. That's one thing I did wrong here. Alright, hacky, but I made it work. I gave padding from the baseline, and I set the horizontal padding, and I kept that the same. It's a little hacky, but now our card looks good. um, so now we need a list of these. So what I'm going to do on the home screen is, we could add, I'll put a little spacer below the theme, and I could use like a lazy row, which I think is like, think of it like a recycler view. It'll lazily load things, but I think for simplicity, I'm just going to use a row of items. So let's do that. Inside our browse theme section, we've got the title. Let's add some spacing. And then let's add our row, which lays things out horizontally. And one thing I want here is this horizontal arrangement. I want to make sure I add 8 dips of spacing between each card. So that's what that will do there. And so within this row, we can do plant themes dot for each, and then we want to add a plant theme card for that theme. And we also want to give this a modifier of modifier dot horizontal scroll, and then remember scroll state. So let's rebuild this preview. I think this will be everything we need for the theme section. Fingers crossed. Ooh, look at that. That looks good. It does have looks better on the dark theme. I wonder why. I think part of the reason it doesn't look good on the light theme is because the elevation was off. If you look here, like, the card has like no elevation. I think that was something in our theme page. Let me go up and find that and see if I can fix that. Yeah, so 1 dp. That looks a lot larger than 1 dp elevation. Let me see what the card does by default. And it does see 1 dp. So maybe it's just, maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe the Android Studio preview, the card doesn't look right. But what we can do is we can run this and see how it looks like on my device. So I'm going to do that by hacking the main activity. We're going to add a new composable for home. But we haven't yet hooked up the navigation from login to home. So what I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to make home my default start navigation so that I can run my app and, whoops, I hit the wrong thing. So that I can run my app and hopefully see what the home screen looks like so far. Looks pretty good. I do have one issue that I still don't know the answer to. Why there appears to be a very subtle border here. I don't know why that comes up. I don't even know if you can see it. So don't even worry about it, but I'll look into that in a future thing. Wow, so this looks great. This is very close to the spec. What it's not doing is you notice that the card doesn't come to the edge of the screen. We've got padding here, and that's because we put padding on our column itself. But if we look at the spec for the home screen, the card should go to the edge of the screen. So one way to work around this is to, instead of putting our horizontal padding on the column, we could put it on these components individually, which feels a little tedious. Maybe there's a way for like an individual component to say like, don't clip this padding. I know it's something you could do in XML. I don't know if there's a way in Compose, but I'm going to instead just put this padding on each individual component. So I'm going to go into our home screen. We're going to get rid of this line on the column. Instead, we'll put it on each thing. So on like the search input, we'll set the horizontal padding to 16. We will do the same thing. Can we set negative padding? It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. But I don't think I want negative padding because I want it to be, when I get to the end of the list, I still want to see this padding. And I don't know if I set negative padding, if that will screw up the end of the scrolling behavior. And we also want to put this on our row. Nice. There is a constraint layout artifact for Compose. I don't know if y'all have seen that. Nice. So this is a little more verbose, but it gives us what we want. The cards scroll all the way to the edges of the screen, but we still get the spacing at the start and at the end. So, nice. Okay, adding favorite themes to home. So we are off to a good start on the home screen. This is gonna break a record for one of my longest streams. I love it. Now let's design our home garden. This will be an interesting one to make. I don't know how to do this. Let's start by doing the title, just like we did with the last one. So I'm going to copy this because I think we want the same sort of look and feel to this title. But we'll do something a little differently. So let's paste it here for a sec. Let's do design your home garden. We'll actually have to change some things, but let's build refresh. Because we also have the icon to think about here. So for this text, we actually want to update this to a row. We want to make a row that has this text input and this icon. I'm gonna switch over this spec. Because it also looks like this has a different thing here. This has like padding from baseline. And then this icon, yeah. I'm a little nervous if I make it a row, how well these items will like align with each other, but I think we can make it work. The only other thing I need to know before I start is what is the name of that icon. And if we go back to our theme page, that is the filter list icon. So I think we can make this work. Let's go back, let's make a row, and we're gonna, yeah, the casing in Compose is a little hard to get used to. So I'm gonna cut this real quick, and I'm gonna make a row. This is going to have, we actually want this to be 40, to be padding from there. And then at the end of the row, we want an icon. Oops, let's get rid of these things again. We want icons.default.filter. Oh, is it not there? I think I might need this extended icons artifact from Compose. Yeah, let's look that up. I know that there's an extended artifact for Compose for material icons. We're gonna add that. That's probably where this filter icon is that we need. Thank you for stopping by, Jason. I appreciate it. This is a fun little code along for the Android Dev Challenge that I wanted to do. This whole thing is going to get posted on YouTube after the fact, which is why I'm just powering through and doing it all at once. If it was a normal stream, I might have split things up, but we're going to try to power through, build the whole thing, throw it up on YouTube. So, say hi to YouTube. Nice, so now we've got the filter list icon. And let's rebuild this. Oh, also I'll set the size. I don't know what the default size is for these icons, but I'll just follow the spec. The size is 24. So this probably won't lay out perfectly because I want the icon to be all the way at the end. Actually, it didn't even show up. Why not? I lost the preview again. Because part of why I don't think this will work right is I want the text to fill up as much of the space as possible. So we're going to set the weight of that to 1. So we'll have the text fill up as much of the space as it can, and the icon will go there. Yeah, this icon's all out of whack. We can fix that by setting the vertical alignment on the row. We can do alignment dot, I guess, do I want it to be bottom? If I'm looking at the spec, I think then we want this icon to be at the bottom of the row that we make. So I'm going to try that out. Also noticing while I'm here, this is the baseline. We also want 16 dips of spacing below this baseline before we do this vertical scrolling list. So let's also add that here on the title. So top will be 40, bottom will be 16. Let's rebuild this preview. Let's see what we get. I think this will be pretty close. Fingers crossed. Okay. Alright, that kind of worked. This little guy got lower than I thought. Also, this horizontal padding shouldn't be on the title anymore. It should be on the row itself. This little guy went all the way to the bottom. Maybe I should make the alignment center? But that will screw up the text, I think. Let's find out. To play around with how to position. Oh, sorry, you can't see it. This icon was further below the text than I thought, and now I screwed it up and I made it too high. So what I need to figure out is I need to figure out where this guy's supposed to go. I suppose what I could do, it's weird. It's almost like the icon is aligned with the baseline of the text, but I don't know if that's like a thing I can specify. And it doesn't perfectly line up with one of these things, so I can't just like, I could try giving it like a space of like 8 dips below the icon and see if that does what I want. I don't know. I don't know. How bad does it look? I guess. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I zoomed in way too much. Don't use the scroll wheel for zooming. Yeah. Let me double check. Just if I get rid of the vertical alignment, let me see what this will look like. Good night, Trax. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, I will. I'll tweet this out on YouTube when it's done, so I'll let you know when you can check it out. Yeah, I'm gonna try this. I'm going to align the... I'm going to align everything to the bottom. And then specifically on the icon, I'm going to try to give it some extra padding for the bottom so that it's not right at the bottom. But hopefully this gives it like 8 dips of space above the bottom portion. Sorry, just checking to see if I have any messages. Nope, I think we're good still for now. While this is building, we'll see how this turns out. Waiting. We're so close. We're so close. I think that once I get this working, I think the next vertical list shouldn't be too bad. We'll find out. Is that a thing? Is align by baseline a thing? Maybe, yeah, I made this did not work because the padding gets applied to the thing. Align by baseline is a thing in a row scope. Okay, let's try it. Let's build and refresh and try this out. Thank you, Stack Overflow. Oh no, I don't think that worked. No, it didn't. Can you post the link to the Stack Overflow question that you looked... Oh god, I did it again. Can you post a link to that Stack Overflow question? I'd love to look at it, see if I can understand what they did. Interesting. So, I wonder maybe I need to put this modifier on each item? Or if it only works for text, it's possible that it's... Let's look at the documentation. Position the element vertically such that its first baseline aligns with sibling elements also configured to align by baseline. So aligns with sibling elements also configured to align by baseline. So maybe I do need to add this to both the text and the image. So let's try that, and then let's see what we get. Thank you for finding that. I appreciate it. Refresh again just because this has been acting up. I'm worried that it doesn't work because an image doesn't have a baseline that I'm aware of. Yeah, I know there's this align by... Yeah, it seems like that only works for text. Alright, so I think what I'm going to do for now, just to move forward, is I'm going to go back to giving this like center vertically. It didn't quite match the spec, but it got us pretty close. Oops, I ran on my devices in the preview, but it got us pretty close. I'm gonna go with it for now, and maybe I can come back to the other thing and figure it out. But I want to keep this going. So now let's talk about building this home section. Maybe row vertical alignment overrides. Maybe. All right, one more try. But I don't want to spend too long on one thing. Nope, I went back to it being shoved at the top. Um, yeah, I have a feeling that align by baseline only works with like text components. Um, there's got to be something. I'll definitely look into it. I will definitely post about it on Twitter, or I'll drop it on the link, or I'll drop it as a comment under this YouTube video when it goes out. I will figure that out. But let's move on to wow. We just passed the 3 hour mark. Shout out to all of you amazing people who have hung out for all of this. I appreciate it. Also, those of you who have come in and out, I appreciate it. We're so close to done. We really have, oversimplifying it, we have 2 steps. We need to build out this vertical list. We need to build out this menu item. We'll see if we want to get crazy enough to like keeping track of this checked state. I'm kind of thinking I might just try to build the UI and not deal with these checkboxes and then wrap it up. But let's see how this goes. So we've got a similar thing here where we created like our plant theme, right? That has like um, an image res and a title. And for this app, I'm going to reuse that same data class for all these remaining items. Even though it's not like a theme, I'm just going to reuse that because it helps pair an image res and a title. And I'm going to make a list of those that we can then populate in like a column here. So let me go over to the, where do I want to go? I want to go in the plant theme. I'm going to pull this up on my other screen here. And I'm going to make, we're going to call this home garden themes for these other items that we want to show. So we've got plant theme, we've got the Monstera first. One of my favorite plants. Megan has just a absolutely massive Monstera in the apartment. That is very cool. Except for like in her old apartment when it was right next to the bed and I was afraid of tripping on it every morning and kicking it in the middle of the night. But it's a very pretty plant when it's not in my way. I think she also has a fiddle leaf tree, but I could be wrong. I know that she has a snake plant because I gave her one. Okay, so those are all of the items that we need to throw in this screen. Excuse me, I was there before the Monstera. Okay, that doesn't work for that particular plant. Get out of here. Huh. All right. What's next? Go back to the home screen. Let's build this. We need to make this row item. So before we build it, let's talk about it. This is an interesting one, because I think there's a lot of layers here, right? We have like, we have this image, which I guess is not a card view. It's just an image with some rounded corners. Zoom in. The corners are rounded. And then we've got like this text, which is like a column. We've got this checkbox, so it's like we've got like a row with like a column inside of it. And then there's this line, which like, what is that part of? Is this like a column with like a row inside of it? I mean, I don't know how many layers we've got to this, but let's just start building it one item at a time and go from there. One thing I want to note, some good stuff here. I want to see what the size of this image is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh my god, 8 times 8 is 64. Okay, so, I could have figured that out because this pink one was 64. I didn't even read this. I just like mentally, manually counted each of these lines. Oh god. Okay, so let's start by building out this item and just add the row item. Let's go to bloom. we'll call this home garden list item. And this will be another composable function. Home garden list item. And it will take in a plant theme. Let's add our preview functions, as always. Oops. And yeah, let's just write it. Bloom theme, dark theme is true. And then we can do home garden list item. We will do home garden themes dot first. And we'll copy this preview and make it a light item. Okay, so I'm gonna test this out incrementally, kind of piece by piece. So I'm not even actually gonna think about like rows and columns yet. Let's just make an image. Let's make an image. We will use painted resource. Oh, yeah. I assume there's some live previews. I'll have to play around with them. Thanks for pointing that out. Next time I make one, I'll try it out. So let's just start with the image, specifically because I'll show you in a second. Content description, we can do plant theme.name, whoops, title, plus image again, and the size for this, we want it to be 64. And we can set our content, what is it called? Content scale crop. Control Alt J. Okay, I'll try that out. Although I think that my build of Arctic Fox is screwing me up. Because I don't think that all these shortcuts work. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I did have Command Alt J, surround with row column. I'll try that out when I go to build it. The other thing with the image is, well, let me split these previews and run this. So one of the things with this image is I wanted to make sure it had rounded corners. And there's actually a really cool way to do that. We already have like our own, we know this radius is our material theme small shape, right? So on the image, I believe we can do, oh my god, what is it called? Clip? Yeah, and then we could do teal theme.shapes.small. Yes, we can give it a, oops, did I mess something up? Let me look at this preview. I think I messed up the clip part. I thought that was what it was called. Yeah. Android City has so many shortcuts. Where is the... How do I do this? Oh, sorry. I think that the clip I'm looking for is on modifier, not on the image. I want modifier.clip, and that's where I give it the shape. So now if we run this, we should see that our image view is going to get like some slightly rounded corners to it. There we go, looking good so far. Alright, so we've got our image view. Let's throw that into a row, and let's add then a column with some text. So I'm going to keep splitting this up just for, since I hope all of you appreciate it, but Jason called out. I'm going to keep splitting this up. But I'm going to make this plant image. So let's take this and let's wrap it in a row. And then after the plant image, we want a column which has this, where do I get, oh my god. This is what I'm looking for. Where the title is H2 and then below it is body 1. So let's add that real quick. Let's add column. So we've got text. Text is going to be plant theme. Title. The style is going to be typography.h. What is it? H2. And below that, we're going to have another text. And this was hard-coded. We're not going to do fancy descriptions. We're just going to match the spec. That'll be body 1. And we can continue to split this up. Best way forward is to use Command-Shift-A. Yes, Command-Shift-A is like the shortcut to find all shortcuts. Definitely recommend it. So we'll make this title and description. Let's rebuild and let's see what we're left with. We'll need to play around a little bit with alright, yeah, so it's kind of there. Interesting that is it the same color text on light and dark? It shouldn't be. Oh, I know, because I think I want to wrap this in a surface. Do I want to wrap it in a surface? Maybe not, because it will get put on a surface when I include it in the other thing. But one of the specs I do need here is the spacing sort of above and below stuff. So I need 24 dp above the title baseline. Yeah, I could put a surface in the preview. I'll show you how to do that in a second. I need 24 dp above and below the baseline. I'm also going to put 16 dp spacing. I'm going to put this... I think I'm going to put this on the row itself. I don't know if that's like the right thing to do, but I think it'll work. So let's do that before I lose it. On the title, we want modifier.padding from baseline. The top is going to be 24. And then on the description, we want to set the modifier padding from baseline. The bottom is going to be 24. And we said on the row, we wanted to put some spacing. So we're going to do arrangement.spaced by 16 dp. And then, yeah, see, Kenny brought up a good point. I don't need to put a surface here inside the list item, but I can put one on the preview. Let's try this shortcut. We could put surface, and then we could say color is equal to material theme dot colors dot background. I'm just going to copy this and do the same thing for the light preview. Then I have to remember to toggle this back. So now let's build and refresh and let's see what we've got. I think it's going to start looking pretty good. Okay, where did I screw up? Oh, I know where I screwed up. I put the surface on the outside of the theme. I shouldn't have done that. Because that means the surface didn't get the colors from my actual theme. Yeah, you said it right as I realized what happened. So let's replace all that. There we go. So we've got the bloom theme and then the surface inside of it. So now let's rebuild our preview. The preview looks good. Actually interesting that I've now got spacing here. I don't know if that's... might play around with that. But let's get the whole element together and then we'll worry about the fact there's some spacing below the preview here. The next thing we need in our row is this checkbox. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this fill max width. Yeah, let me do that before I forget. And so after the title and description, we want to add a checkbox. I assume that there is a thing for that. We'll just leave check to true for now. I probably need object changed. Again, we'll do nothing. I suppose we could do the same thing we did for inputs. We could keep like a local state for the checkbox. I'm gonna put that in its own thing. We could keep like a local state for the checkbox. Let's do that just so we can actually play around with it when we run it. So check state.value, and then we can say, so this way when we actually run it and we're tinkering with our home screen, we can have like an actual state, but we don't have to be too serious about it. I think this will be, we'll notice once I see this checkbox that it will be thrown at the top. Yeah. So now would be a good chance to think about, we could probably use vertical alignment here and just say that everything in our row should be vertically aligned. Center vertically. The other thing I want to do is make this title and description column. I want that to fill up all of the available space. So what we can do with that is in here we can set the modifier on this to be, maybe I can do fill max width, and I think I can either use fill max width or weight, but I think if I use fill max width it will abide by the rules. Let's find out. Okay, not quite. That shoved the other thing off screen. So let's set weight on this. And in order for this to work, it needs to know that it's inside a row. So we're going to make this an extension function on row scope. And now I can use the weight modifier. This is a little hack some of you might not realize. The modifier.weight function only works if you're inside of a row scope. So if you pull stuff out into your own function and you want to use this, you need to make sure that you like use the row scope extension in order to make stuff like that work. So now let's try this out. Nice. This looks good. This looks really good. So the only thing it's missing, and I don't know how I'm going to do this, the only thing it's missing is like this line. So actually it's super weird also that this line doesn't line up with the start of the text. Because I was thinking I could take this stuff, this title and description and plant checkbox, and then I could like throw that into another column and just put like a divider at the bottom of the column. I guess I could do that, and then I wouldn't be like perfectly lined up with the spec, because what this would do is it would make the divider line up with the start of the text. But it'll work. Let's try that out. Let's take this guy. Let's wrap it into a column. Whoops, nope. Oh. Huh. I guess if I do that, I've now broken my thing about putting that in a row scope. Haven't I? Yeah, it's almost like I need a column and then another row inside of it. Screw it. It's a lot of nesting, but let's try it out. So we want this in a column. These things are going to get moved inside a row. And so let's rename this. Let's do like title, description, checkbox, row, just to get that out of the way. So we've got our plant image. This is all inside a row now. We've got our plant image, and then we've got another column, which is this title, description, checkbox, row. And then below it, we're going to put a divider. And I think the color that the divider uses will be fine. It will just be the default stuff. It may not put... Oh, that worked. Okay, we're close. What changed now is I no longer want this vertical alignment. I guess I then also want a vertical alignment on this row. the row that has the checkbox should also have a vertical alignment, and then we should actually be right where we want. Weird that I don't have a divider. I guess I do have a divider on the light screen. It's just very hard to see. Let's take a look at the spec real quick. Does it tell me what the color of the divider is? It doesn't. Let's look at the source code. So by default, it just uses on surface with some divider alpha. Is that what I want? I don't think that's actually what I want. Oh, wait, maybe. Oh. Let's leave it for now. I can see that the divider is there. It's just really like subtle on the light screen. I don't know why. But maybe that's because I'm not seeing it like in a like whole vertical list. So let's go with it for now. Now, inside our home garden section, we can begin to build this out. So we've got this row, which was the title and filter button. Below that, we can use does Compose have color control normal? I think effectively, yes. It doesn't use the same name, but all controls should reference something. I don't know if it was primary or what, but there's a similar idea. There's like a like activated color thing. I forgot what it's called. I can look that up for you in a second. But let's try and add this column of items real quick. So we're gonna add a column, and then let's see. We've got like 8 dips of actually, let's look at the spec and find out. Yeah, so there's 8 dips of spacing between each item. So I can throw that in the column. I can do vertical arrangement dot spaced by .dp, and here we can do home garden themes dot for each. We can then do home garden list item with that theme. Let's rebuild our preview. Let's see how this looks. Fingers crossed we get it close on the first try. I actually think I need a padding on this column. Yes. We need to add some padding on the column, and then we'll be good to go. But this looks pretty good. What do y'all think of this? I think we did a great job. I think that's actually very, very close to the spec. Yeah, the divider, you could definitely see the divider on the light theme now. It's just hard to view it like in each row item. Love it. Looks great. Let's run it on a physical device. Let's see how it looks on the Pixel phone. Then we'll commit some code. Then we've got to make a bottom navigation view, and then we'll be done. And then we can say that we built Bloom. Awesome. I'm actually disappointed that I have such a large phone and I can't like actually like scroll this. This should be able to scroll. I actually think that the scrollable vertical scroll should be set on like the main screen. Here, when I set like this column, I should set like vertical scroll. So like if I couldn't fit the entire home screen, then it would scroll. But we've got that. We've got this horizontal scroll. And yeah, we can play around with these checkboxes individually. Oh my god, if I can tap on them. Maybe there's a way to make their clickable space a little bigger. But yeah. Actually, if I look at the spec, these look like they're pretty large. These are like 24 dp. That checkbox is definitely not 24. So let's update the checkbox real quick before we commit this code. Let's go. That looks a lot nicer. And I still can't click on it. But it's definitely closer. Um, awesome. This looks great. Um, the next thing we need to do is add the bottom app bar. So let's commit some code. Words. This looks good. And yeah, so the last thing to do on this application before we're done for the night is we need to make this bottom app bar. So let's actually, this checkbox isn't styled right. Before I move on, I just realized this checkbox isn't styled right. Notice how like the checkbox here is white and it's not like the black color that should be in here. And it looks like the background might be correct. I'm not sure though. This is our green 300 and then this checkbox. Let's dig into some source code again. So the checkbox should have colors that we could pass to it. Oh no, did not add E freeze. Yeah, we've got checkbox colors. If we look at those, so the checked color is equal to secondary, which, okay, that's right. The check mark color is equal to the surface color. I don't want that. I want the check mark color to, I think, be the same as the background. Yeah, the check mark color should be the same as the background. So we're going to use these default colors and we're going to modify that one property. So colors equals checkbox colors dot, whoops, is checkbox default dot colors. Oops, oh god. Wait, why is it, I don't want it to expand the whole thing. I'm gonna try not to autocomplete and hope this works. Yeah, there we go. And then we've got this, what's the field I want? I want check mark color. I want that to be the same as the background. So let's run this again and try this out. I think that will look better for us. There we go. Much nicer. Way closer to the spec. Love it. Alright. And that subtle thing right there, I just want to like give this as a plug, and why I'm like slowly but surely wanting to go all in on Compose is for those of you who've been Android devs for a while, you know that like if a designer came to you and said, hey, we want to change just the checkmark color on a checkbox, that would be so difficult. Like, I don't even know where I would start. But like, that was super easy. That took like 2 minutes to customize just the checkbox color. Yeah, I'm all in now. I've been like advocating to some of my friends. Like, I went to my friend TJ. I was like, I know that I hated this 2 months ago, but like I'm all in, and you should start learning it. I know TJ stopped by at the start of the stream. I will make sure he gets the YouTube video and he goes to check it out. All right. But I'm getting tired, but I know that I can push through and we can build this last thing, which is this bottom app bar. So how are we going to build this? Well, one thing we want to change is, let's go back to our home screen. In a recent stream with Compose, if you've seen this, there is a tooling we can get right from the Compose, which is like a scaffold, which is like the basic framework for a material design application. And a scaffold allows us to set some body content and then set some, what's the word? Like top bar, bottom bar, etc. So we're going to follow that same idea. A way to make that readable, I'm going to copy all of this. This is our home screen. I'm going to put it in a separate function and call it home screen content. Okay, just so we have it in its own thing. And then now we're going to replace our home screen with one of these scaffold composables. And this is our content screen. We're going to do home screen content. Now, I think, let's start here. And then I have another thing that I'm worried about, but let's start here. And within it, we could set a bottom bar, which is its own function, where we could set a BottomAppBar. And I'm already, just for readability's sake, I'm going to pull this out into its own function now, which will help us follow through everything. So let's create this BottomAppBar, this Bloom bottom bar. So let me pull up the spec over here so I can kind of talk about it. I'll go back and show you. So we've got this BottomAppBar. It's got 4 items. Within a BottomAppBar, the way it works is it's basically a row, and then you give it each bottom navigation item that you want. And then with each one, you tell it whether or not it's selected. You give it an icon, you give it some text. So we need to do that for each of these. So let's just kind of start at the top. Let's do a bottom navigation item. I think that's what it's called. Yep. Let me clean this up. We've got selected. For the first one, we'll make it true. We won't do anything on click. And what am I missing? Why don't you tell me what property I'm missing? I think the icon is required. Yeah. So let's put in here, we'll put in icon. We will do icons.default. Oh god, what goes here? Home. For the content description, here we can put null because it'll probably read from the actual label, which we define as its own thing, to be text for home. Let's run this. Let's make sure that we can see the BottomAppBar, and then I will probably want to pull out this code just so I'm not repeating a bunch of bottom navigation items, because this is a lot of boilerplate to copy and paste 4 times. Cool, this kind of worked. The color's wrong. It's also aligned with the bottom. I think there's some way that I could get it to not draw over the bottom. Let's figure that out in a second, but that was a good start. Let's abstract out this bottom nav item so I don't have to keep rewriting it. So let's create our own private composable real quick, and we're going to call it Bloom bottom button. And we're basically going to do this bottom navigation item. Whoops. Oh, that was supposed to be curly brackets. And, oh my god. What did I do wrong? Why don't you like me? Oh, because this is another thing that needs to be a row scope. This bottom navigation item only works if you're inside a row. And we're going to have this pass in the things we care about. So we'll have a selected boolean. We will have the icon, which is a image vector. And then we'll have the label text, which will be a string. And so let's replace all of these. So this way we don't need to repeat this long bottom navigation item boilerplate every time. We can just call our custom Bloom bottom button extension function and pass in the things that we do care about for this sample app. So, replace this. We've got bloom, bottom button. Selected, true, icon will be icons.default.home, and the label text will be home. And sorry, let me make that a little more readable for y'all. Cool. So this is what we'll do for each button. I'm going to pull up the docs on my screen, and I'm going to dump in the next ones. So after home, actually I'll make this false, we have, let's see, we need this favorite border, we'll use that, and we'll have favorites. After favorites we have profile, and I believe there is I believe it's account circle is the actual icon name here, yep. And then after that we have cart. Shopping cart icon. So let's run this, let's see how this looks. Love it, looks great. Still dealing with the bottom navigation thing. I think the way I'm going to fix that as a hack, because time is, I have that as an activity theme where I have like translucent navigation. I'm going to turn that off. There's probably a way to like adjust for the padding, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to just set this to not be translucent, so it'll be at the top. Nice. And then, ooh, interesting. I expected this to scroll. It didn't. We could talk about why in a second. Let me look at the spec and make sure that our bottom navigation bar looks right. So here we've got, on the light theme it looks like that's right. We've got this pink bottom app bar with these black and gray icons. And on the dark theme, we've got this dark one. Okay, so that was kind of close, except on the dark theme, it looks like it should be using... Oh, interesting. It looks like it should be using the primary color. Why does that look like it worked on the light one, but not the dark one? Time to dive into the source code. Yay. BottomAppBar. Oh, interesting. It uses this primary surface color. So let's look at that. Oh, this is probably an interesting light theme, dark theme anecdote. It is. So the primary surface color, if it's light theme, it uses the primary color, but if it's dark, it uses surface. I guess that's probably in the name, primary surface. And I think for a lot of cases we want that. An example where we do want that is with like the top app bar. So if you have like a red toolbar, that works in your light theme, but your dark theme, it shouldn't be red, it should be dark. And I think maybe they're saying we should do the same for the bottom navigation component. But in this space, or in this case, for our example, we want the background color to always be primary. So let's go ahead and override that. Material theme dot colors dot primary. So now let's run this, and now we should see. I knew the gray didn't feel right. Love it. Now this looks right. This looks like what was in the spec. So, this looks good. Let's commit this code, and then let's see if we can fix the scrolling thing, and then we can say that we did it. So the thing with the scrolling, I actually think that I know exactly what's going on here. We ran into this last stream. So you may notice this hint from the IDE that on a scaffold content, it gives us padding values. And what those padding values are for is to account for the top and bottom bars. So what we want to do is we want to take these padding values and we want to apply it onto our home screen content. So one way I'm going to do that is I'm going to just pass those in to the padding values, or to the home screen content function. It will take in some padding values, and then we can put those right on our surface, I think. Do I want to put it on the surface or the column? I think I want to put it on the column, actually. So let's run this, and now I think that it should account for the bottom bar, and so I should then be able to scroll a little bit for the portions of the screen that are hidden. Yep, it's very subtle. It's very subtle, but it's there. I think a way that we could make it even better is let's go to our home garden section, and on the home garden themes, let's put some extra padding at the bottom, so that now when we run this, we should have some space below the last item, and then that scrolling should be even more obvious. Yeah, there we go. That looks great. So we've got vertical scrolling, we've got horizontal scrolling here, we can combine, mix and match these. We've got checkboxes, and we've got bottom navigation. Nothing happens when you click on it, but very cool. I think there's one more thing we need to do, and that is we need to navigate from login to home. That was one thing that we didn't actually do, so let's do that, and then we can call it a night. So we want to start at welcome. That's our new start navigation, or what it was. And we're going to pass in the nav controller into the login screen. And we're going to do the same thing as before. We're just going to pass this around into our login screen. We're going to pass it through to the login button. And then when that login button is clicked, whoops. There was a little bit of IDE navigation there. I need to find the login button. There we go. And then this was the thing we talked about earlier. We need to pass in the on click into the Bloom secondary button. Navigate to home. Let's go into Bloom secondary button. We'll have on click. Will just be this function. By default, it'll just be do nothing. And we can replace this with on click. Okay, that should, and then we need to update our preview. And we'll just stub in a nav controller there. Okay, so let's run this moment of truth. If this works, we can all go home and call it a night. Almost 4 hours. I love it. This was a ton of fun. Huge learning exercise for me. Hopefully it was an interesting learning exercise for all of you. Definitely check this out on YouTube. I will try to upload it tonight, but then I'm going to go through and try to set video markers at each of the segments. So I don't know if it'll be live tonight. Definitely something I hope to do by tomorrow night if you don't see it. Please check out the video. Share it with everyone. I believe it's interesting. Here's our home screen that we built, or our welcome screen. Looks great. We log in, takes us to the login screen. We can even enter some test stuff, enter in a password, and then log in. And this is our home screen. Scrolls a little bit vertically if necessary. We can browse our themes and click on these checkboxes. That looks great. Look at what we built. That was a ton of fun. I know something like this with the existing view system would have taken me so much longer. After building some of these, I'm definitely all in on Jetpack Compose. Very interested. I hope y'all are interested too. Hope that you learned something with this. Um, Let me know in chat if you have any questions about anything we built tonight. Um, you know, also, if you're watching this playback, comment below the video, reach out to me on Twitter. I would love to know what you think. Um, yeah, thank you for joining me on this journey. I really appreciate it. That was a fun night. Quiet chat. Everyone's tired. I get it. Um, yeah, super exciting. There's a handful of Compose things I didn't get to look at. We didn't get to solve on the login screen, or we didn't do the underlined text here. Also on the home screen, I thought it would be cool to look at like IME actions. So sometimes on the text input, you could get this button and instead be like a search button and have it do like actually perform a search. Would be cool to do in like a future video. Obviously there's way more to Compose than what I built today, but this should be a good introduction to a handful of Compose components. We really did a lot when you think about it. We learned about how to build a design system. We then took that to build a number of screens. We learned about um, styling. We learned about surfaces, about cards, rows and columns, and scrollable items and text inputs. Like there was a whole lot packed into this short, seemingly simple app. But hopefully taught y'all a lot that you can go ahead and take and start adding to your own projects very soon. So, have a good night, everyone. I'll see y'all next Wednesday. Appreciate you stopping by.